Okay. Being 7 o'clock on August 25th, 2008, I would like to open the first meeting of our scholastic year 2008-2009 for the Foxboro School Committee. The agenda will be as follows: visitors, approval of minutes, school choice, back to school update, which will include administrative retreat, new teacher orientation, and facilities update. Then we will move on to the Massachusetts School Building Authority update, school district goals for 2008-2009, school committee policies, first reading for 25 of them. We're almost completed. Other matters, and then I shall ask for a motion to go into executive session for the discussion of non-union negotiations, after which we will not be returning to an open meeting. And I personally would like to say a warm welcome to all of returning faculty and staff, and new members. Thank you for joining our Foxboro family. And our first accolades of the year go to, once again, Mike O'Leary and his wonderful team of custodians. The grounds and the buildings look beautiful for opening. And to our administrative team, who each separately in their own buildings have done much to prepare for the year. And thank you, even though you had all of the Massachusetts School Building Authority papers and preparations this summer, you have managed to do 25 of our last 37 policies. So thank you very much. Are there any visitors who would like to come forward?
Judith Harrington, 39 Shoreline Drive. I'm here as president of FACES, and what I wanted to do was just give an update to everybody as to where we stand. We're closing in on $150,000, and we'll be pulling the final 3 raffles before the start of the next school committee meeting on, I believe it's September 8th. Okay.
Does that mean on the 8th itself?
On the 8th, here in this room, before the start of your school committee meeting, if everyone is in agreement with that.
We will get it on film.
Right, and we were going to ask Dr. Martis if he would do us the honors of, I will bring the raffle drum, and we'll do all 3 of them. Orlando, which is, at this point, we have only sold 80 tickets to Orlando, so I'll tell you, your chances are pretty good right now for anybody who still wants to buy a ticket. We've sold 120 tickets to Aruba. We've sold 225 tickets to Hawaii. So all 3 of them right now, but with times the way they are, we understand gas is a priority for a lot of people and everything else, so we thought it's only fair to pull them now. People have been asking me constantly when we are going to do it, and I want to make sure that we get this done sooner than later. I did want to take just a few minutes to let you know that the Aruba trip does consist of 7 nights in a 3-bedroom ocean view suite at Marriott Surf Club Resort, 6 round-trip coach airline tickets, minivan car rental voucher for the week, and $3,000 towards meals, sightseeing, or taxes. The Hawaii trip is 7 nights at the Ko'olina Marriott Resort in Oahu. It's a 2-bedroom ocean view suite. 7 nights at the Maui Marriott Resort in Maui, 2-bedroom ocean view suite. 4 round-trip coach airline tickets, car rental voucher on each island for a full-size car, and $3,000 for sightseeing, meals, or taxes. Orlando is 7 nights in a 3-bedroom Marriott Imperial Palms Resort suite, 6 round-trip coach airline tickets, 6 5-day hopper passes to Disney World, 6 2-day passes to Universal Studios, and $3,000 for meals, sightseeing, or taxes. And this trip to Orlando has already been booked for the February vacation, February 14th through the 21st of 09, which is the school vacation. Let's see, what else?
How would someone buy a ticket if they wanted to buy a
If anyone wants to
last-minute
buy a ticket, if it's okay with Dr. Martis, could I leave more? I have an order form right here, and I'm going to leave some at Cindy's Jewelers, She had them before. I think she's all out. I'm going to talk to Amy Garabrandt at Head to Toes. She had them for me before. I'm going to see if she wouldn't mind leaving a few. And give some over to Wendy at the superintendent's office. Or if you want, put a check in the mail to Foxboro Lions Club to my address, 39 Shoreline Drive. Address it to Faces. And when I get it, designate which trip you want, and I send the stub right out to you. That's what I've been doing all along for most people, because they don't have the time to go to one place or another. So, but I will try to accommodate anybody as best I can. My number is in the book. Call me. I'd be happy to get a ticket to your home if you need to. But like I said, I think it's 2 weeks from now that we will definitely be pulling these. So if anybody is interested still, please. We'd love to have you support Faces. It's a great cause. Like I said, we've got $150,000, and we're shooting for that $200,000 mark.
I would suggest to the committee that we schedule our meeting to officially begin at 7:05 on the 8th, and that we have the cable
Yes.
station, and we announce that we'll draw at 7 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
And we can have it, we certainly can have it on cable. I mentioned Faces today to our new teachers. I'll talk a little bit more about our new teacher group. I mentioned the importance of having an education foundation in the community, and the real benefits that we'll be seeing in the future around innovation and opportunities for teachers. And I'm also going to talk about this at our faculty program that we have on Wednesday. About the opportunity. We talked about it at our administrators retreat last Monday as well, and showed people the application form for our teachers to look at, and I'm anxious to see what their ideas might be for different things. So this is a great opportunity for people to continue, the community to continue to support an education foundation where the funds will be driven right back into the school system and really benefit all of our students and families in Foxboro. So, so I would suggest that we start at 7:05. Does that make sense?
Right, but call it,
We'll officially post the meeting for 7:05,
and-
but know that we'll start at 7 with the drawings.
Great. And if I forgot to mention it, the tickets are $100 each, just so that everybody at home knows.
Judy, the other thing is, on those trips, don't they accommodate more people? So
Yeah,
there are
they do.
certain airline tickets that are given, but Orlando, you could have 4 more people go.
Orlando, it's a 3-bedroom,
So
so
it
it will
sleeps 10.
sleep 10, yeah.
What
We're
about the
providing
Aruba?
6 tickets,
Right.
airline tickets, but if somebody won and wanted to bring more, if they want to go in with other couples and not have to spend $100, spend $50 each, go in with 2
What about
couples.
the Aruba and the Hawaii?
Aruba is also it's also a 3-bedroom, so that one will also accommodate 10 people. And Hawaii is a 2-bedroom suite, which I believe will accommodate 6.
Okay.
So you could get 3 couples in on the Hawaii, the 2 weeks in Hawaii, yeah.
All right, beautiful.
Definitely.
Okay.
Okay?
thank you for all your work.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Judy.
You're welcome.
Are there any other visitors? I did receive an email dated August 24, 2008, written at 10:42 in the morning from Hector Ballon, and he wishes me to read this.
Do you have copies for us?
I don't. Go ahead.
Yes.
I will leave this with Wendy, so she'll have it verbatim. Dear Bev, as I mentioned to you, I will not be able to attend tomorrow's meeting. I am leaving today and will not be returning on Friday. I would appreciate it if you could read at the beginning of the visitors section the following statement. As we know, Mr. Harrington notified me on Thursday, June 19th via email that I misquoted him during visitors at the last school committee meeting of June 16th. I mentioned that he called me dumb, in quotation marks, which never happened. I had promised Mr. Harrington that I would correct the record at the next meeting, and much to my regret, I will be away. It is of utmost importance that the record be corrected, and I appreciate your assistance in this very matter. Thank you very much for your assistance in this matter, Hector Ballon. You will have a copy of this. All right, approval of minutes.
write the motion for May 14th.
If we have no questions or corrections?
I'll second it.
Okay, motion made and accepted to accept the minutes as stand for May 14, 2008. All in favor?
Aye.
Any additions or corrections for June 2?
Wendy, were you able to add that correction on high school guidance?
On the June 14th, I did revise it. Okay.
Okay, was that, so, I'm sorry, so was that for the June, so that won't go under the June 2nd, that will go under the June 14th?
I'm sorry, June
Excuse
2nd.
me.
I'm looking
Wait,
at
wait,
the
wait,
second.
wait.
Okay.
June 2nd.
Right. So, the sheet, I was asked to update it, so with
Right.
that, we talked about it
Yeah.
a month ago, was the
Yeah.
30th, so,
That's what I have here, Kate. About the developmental guidance program, 9 through 12.
okay, thank you. All set. Thank you for answering that
Move
question.
to
Larry,
approve.
move to approve. Second. Larry moved to approve. Martha seconded the minutes of June 2. All in favor?
Aye.
The minutes of June 17. Are there any additions or corrections?
Move to approve.
Okay. Where this is not the Olympics. We are a
It might
good
be.
team, but it's not the Olympics. Larry motioned and Katie seconded. Minutes, as stated, are accepted for June 17. All in favor?
Aye.
June 24. Any additions or corrections for our special meeting?
Motion to accept?
I'll second.
Martha motioned, Kate seconded. The minutes are accepted as stated of June 24, 2008. All in favor?
Aye.
Wow. On to school choice. Dr. Martis.
Well, thank you. This was one that, for some reason I've been doing this for years. It's supposed to be accomplished each June. And we look back at the record, and I forgot to bring to your attention the need to vote about school choice. And so I'll ask the committee tonight to spend a minute on school choice. It's a program that's been part of the education reform law in Massachusetts since 1993. And each community has to decide whether to accept students from other communities at a rate of $5,000 per student. That rate actually has never changed in the history of the school choice program. I think given our enrollment and the fact that we have, we're not quite at capacity, but we're close to capacity in all of our buildings. And we've been able to maintain, I think, a good program given the students that we have. I would advise the committee that we vote not to be involved in the school choice program in Massachusetts, but I certainly am open to any other discussion that the committee might have.
I'll make a motion not to accept it.
Right.
We lose members.
Historically, we've never been a part of that.
Right.
I make a motion that we do not vote for school choice.
And I'll second that.
All right, motion made by Martha and seconded by Kate not to accept school choice. Once again, has been our history and pattern. All those in favor?
Aye.
500. Back to school update. And then
Okay,
back to you.
we have a few different areas that I'd like to just inform the committee and the public about, because I think it's important that the committee and the public understand that even though some people go on vacation in the summer, it's not really all of us. But one of the things that we do that's, I think, very important, and I think we do it really well here, is make sure that our school, we'll talk more about our schools in general, but we'll make sure that our education program is moving forward, and we do a lot of planning during the summer and a lot of activity. And one of the things that we were able to do, this is our second year of having all of our administrators together, And again, the craft group and the New England Patriots, I have to thank Dan Murphy and others that work with Dan at Gillette Stadium. They host a day. They give us one of their luxury boxes and host us for the day, which is really terrific because it brings us, it keeps us in Foxboro, but brings us to a different location where we can spend the whole day and not really think about other things. And when we're in schools, that often happens. So what we did is we had a number of different activities, and the first one, which will be a later agenda item, was really about goal setting. So we took the thinking of the school committee from our offsite, and we talked about it with all of our administrators. And when I say our administrators, all of our principals, all of our central office staff, all of our assistant principals, and all of our department heads and directors from across the system. So I think we had 24 people in the room. And we discussed all of the goals that we had talked about at our meeting, and we had a very productive morning doing that. We also had an opportunity to listen to a presenter about another goal that we're talking about some possibilities around meeting the needs of our most able students. So we spent some time talking about that, had a presentation, and spent time talking about that in the how we would look at this in our school system. And in the afternoon we spent, and I'll let Debbie talk a little bit about this because she led this activity. We had a number of our administrators who have gone through some training and will continue to go through some training about leadership. And Debbie led them through an activity about leadership that I'll let her talk about.
Sure. Just briefly, we discussed, I think it's a prime time, as Chris and I discussed, kind of prime time to bring the group together. Some people have been here, some of us who are new to the administrative team, to make sure that we're on the same page, to set the foundation for what we believe in and what our leadership is going to look like and what areas we want to pursue. So we spent some time, they had a few things to read beforehand, not a lot, just enough, and a few sets of handouts. And what we did is we went through and talked about professional learning communities. What are the characteristics? What are the cultural norms of people who really work together, not just to be collaborative, but to truly be leaders together? And that provoked some real good discussion in groups. People got together in groups and talked about it. What does that mean at their level? What are we going to do together? What do we believe in? And looking at all the different cultural norms and components of professional learning communities, they had an opportunity to pick out the area that they felt was going to be the challenge for them or for their department or for their school to grow in, and they shared some strategies that they plan to use to work on those areas. So, and then also acknowledge what are we really good at here in terms of our teams and our committees. What do we do really well? So it's an opportunity to acknowledge from what experts say are good qualities of professional learning communities. What do we already do well, and where are our areas of growth? We followed that by talking about what can we learn from our students by walking through classrooms, when principals walk through, when department heads visit classrooms, rather than just focusing on the formal observation and evaluation process that we're all really familiar with. What can we learn informally about what our kids are telling us that they need? So it really puts the focus of looking at our leadership skills, not on teacher behaviors, our teachers all doing the right thing, but what are the kids doing? And what can the students tell us about their learning? So we had a really good discussion in groups and in the whole group about that. And what we want to do is just follow up with pieces of that leadership strand at our administrative meetings and continue that conversation and develop some focus areas or goals that we have all in common and how we all can work on them together. So it was, I think, a really good opportunity for us to set the background and what we believe in and where we want to go together, really. So it was good afternoon, lots of positive feedback. Good day.
And then, as I mentioned earlier, one of the things that we did under other was talk about the application process for our teacher mini grant program, and that was very, very well received by our administrators. So I think we're off to a good start with our administrative team, and I think we're in a really good place with that. And we've committed through the leadership aspect of it to follow up periodically about how do we focus in on learning and what are the types of things that we do to create that culture of looking at student learning and how we're going to go about that. It would be, I think, a very good topic for a future school committee meeting to have Debbie and Ingrid Alardi and Michelle McCarthy and Pete Regan, and Sue Abrams and Diane Casilli, our language arts and social studies K-8 director, attended a 2-day event sponsored by Research for Better Teaching, which is a well-known, high-quality professional development organization in Massachusetts. So we'll follow up with the school committee because it does fit into some of the goals that we're talking about around student achievement and some of the work that we want to do going forward in that. So again, it was a very productive day, an opportunity for all the administrators. And you know, as all of you know, when the school year starts, it's rare that you can really get everyone together, particularly for a whole day. So these are always valuable. I've been doing these kinds of administrative leadership sessions for quite a few years, and this group, we had great feedback at the end from our administrators over the last few days. They really enjoyed the fact that we could get everyone together and talk about common topics and issues that are concerning us around making sure that we meet the needs of all of our students in a variety of ways. So it's a very, very, very good event.
Chris, question for you. Have you ever thought of the value of having the school committee come for part of the session? If I look at where we've been over the last couple of years as a school committee, I believe our relationship with our teachers, our relationship with our administrators, morale in the organization has come a long way. And I think it's because the school committee has really tried to listen to administration, but to everybody. And I think you've done a great job of sharing with us over time what the staff is thinking, what the administrators are thinking. And I know that there's a separation, you know, of school committee responsibilities, but I would just ask you to think about next year whether there be some value of inviting the school committee for, let's say, just 2 hours or something, whereby they have a chance to interact with the administrative team as well and hear firsthand some of the frustration that maybe they're experiencing that you've shared with us that maybe we haven't fully grasped. And I think it will further build the relationship between the administrative team and the school committee, help us better understand to a deeper level the needs, the wants. I think, you know, part of what drove FACES initially was feedback we were getting from staff and administrators on where the district was lacking in being able to address funding in certain areas. So I just think there may be some benefit of all of us sitting down once a year, having those kinds of group discussions and determining what other things we might do in partnership without stepping on, you know, your toes as the superintendent. But is there a way that we might be able to assist you and help you be more successful, help the staff feel that the people in the school committee really are listening? We have them come and present budgets. We have them come in throughout the year. I just think it's a way to maybe close the loop and show them how much we do really listen and recognize what they do.
Well, I think it's a great idea. I actually think we certainly can do that.
With a speaker.
It'd be a good opportunity.
This might be a nice little segue into something I'd like to hear you mention, although I'm just thinking it up now. It was the first time that your superintendent conference opened up the doors to the guest speaker, and 2 of your administrators and 3 of your school committee members were able to join you and Debbie on the Cape for that when we listened to Dan Pink speak.
Right, we had an opportunity in July. Actually, it was the first time that the Superintendent's Association for 13 years now has had an executive institute in the summer in July, and for the last few years they've been going to Mashpee High School, and we had really one of the best speakers I've heard in a while, Daniel Pink, who wrote a book, Whole New Mind, about looking at what types of students, what types of people will be successful, and he's talking more about, not to get into too much detail about this, but talking more about much of what we've been doing in the last century or more is really left brain thinking, very sequential types of linear thinking, and that the right brain piece about relationships and understanding big picture issues and all of that is really something that we're looking at in this century as being important work that we need to, and his point is in schools we still do a lot of the left brain analysis of what is happening with our students, which is, some of our discussion that we've had in the last year about what do we believe is success when we look at our students, and how do we know when they're successful. Some of it work that we've been talking about, and some of the others. So we had an opportunity, and I don't want to think that anyone to think that the superintendents are a closed society at all, but we did open up the opportunities, and it was such a good success getting other administrators in districts and school committee. I think they had, typically they have about 300 superintendents and assistant superintendents attending, and I think they had another 100, 150.
That one morning.
Once they get the lunch logistics out of the way, they'll be all set. Certainly heard from that. But it was a great opportunity, and it is again, it's a lot of the thinking that we're now able to put in place in our school system, at least in terms of the discussion points, because that's, I think, where we are right now. So. Okay, anything else? I think that's a great idea, Larry. We'll certainly, I think that's a terrific, and it's not hard, that would not be hard to do.
Question.
Sure.
I would very much like to take you up on your offer, because I think the gifted and talented and the update on learning, across all levels is so critical. My question is, in order to put that on the agenda, when do you think you would be ready for the next update? And I'm assuming what we talked about June 2nd, and then again on the 30th, that's the Ronzoli learning where you talked about innovation, you've talked about gifted and talented, or whatever it is that's appropriate to call it. They're one and the same, correct?
It is.
Okay.
It's I call it now challenging our most able learners sometimes, and we'll talk about it when we talk about goals, because we have some work to do in this area.
Absolutely.
So.
I would like us to formally put it on the agenda so that we can all there's already a shift from when we started talking about it. It was in last year's goals, so we can all be educated and we're all on board calling it by the right thing. I think that's great. So whenever you think it's appropriate, perhaps, Madam Chair, I'd like to ask that we put that on the agenda to have that updated. When do you think that would be, Chris? When would you be comfortable?
October.
We need a little bit of time because they just processed what Ronzoli can do, for example. And so we're trying to figure out where is it more appropriately placed, when would it occur, where can we best use it, when are the optimal times that we think we can fit it in, or use it. We're not even sure if it's during the day, after school. I mean, there's a whole host of conversations and decisions that have to happen.
I trust you implicitly.
So I think
What's
we
the
need a little
value
bit
is
of
having
time.
your opinion and having the conversation. I don't care when, as long as we have it.
We will have it.
So to me, that's what's
End of
important.
October.
And is
Or
part-
November, if you're more comfortable,
Yeah.
as long as we don't lose sight and we
Right.
have the answer, so as people ask us, we can help to convey that. I think that's what's important.
I think in conjunction with that, Kate, what'll be timely is some of the grant requests that will be coming in from the teachers will deal specifically with this topic, including potential funding for this program. So I think that even though FACES is a nonprofit private organization, I think there's an opportunity to share with this committee the kinds of requests that come in, as well as the ones that get funded. We want this to be as transparent as possible, and some of these things may get funded through there. So as you're sorting things out, as the grants are coming in, as the FACES Board of Directors takes your recommendations and approves or funds or doesn't fund whatever the programs, we can probably also include that as well, so that that's a good way to update the public.
But would the timing be the same, Larry? Do you think you'd be ready for that in October or November?
I think what we said in terms of the grant is, if I remember, I don't have the grant in front of me, October 3rd, I think we said as a due date for
So my point would be, if for instance, there's one for this Ronzoli learning that Chris and the team were recommending be funded, and FACES was going to fund it, it's an opportune time to talk about the program, the value, the funding, all of it at one time, so that it's transparent.
Yeah, late October, early November, I think would be.
Good. I think that's great.
I don't sit on the board of directors of FACES, but I would think that they'd be willing to come and share, the kinds of grant requests that they're funding, because the more people understand the kinds of things they're funding, the more they'll be willing to support it next year, or make donations throughout the year to the program.
Right.
And it does fit in with everything. People are pretty excited about it. It's a very powerful thing. It is innovative. So we're just, I think everybody's really happy that Chris brought that to the administrative team, because I think now people's wheels are turning
Yep.
in terms of that. But it is a piece of a bigger picture, so that's what we also need time to discuss.
Our next part of our back-to-school update, we this morning welcomed 25 new full and part-time teachers to the Foxboro Public Schools. We have a 2-day, actually this is by contract for the public's benefit, new teachers have 2 extra days in their first year for us to go through an orientation program with them, which is really valuable in school systems, to have new people come into the district and be able to meet all of us and then work through a number of different activities. And so we had an opportunity this morning to welcome them. We introduced them to all of our administrators. We had our leadership from the Foxboro Education Association was there, and our partnerships that we've created with our Teachers Association, and it was really, I think, a very, very good beginning. We heard a lot of feedback. We were fortunate. We had Frank Mortimer from the Foxboro Reporter doing his yearly photo of our new group, our class of 2008, our new class of 2008 group of teachers. So it's really exciting. As we were talking about, and I was talking to all the administrators as we were processing all these people during the late spring and through the summer. We really have a terrific group of people that are joining our staff. I know that we honored our retirees in June. But I think we've been very fortunate that we've been able to, through, I think in many ways, a very good recruiting program, but also an opportunity. We hear a lot of people that are very interested in working in the school system. So we've really attracted a very, very good group of people, and we're very pleased about that. I'll let Debbie walk you through, because she actually has gotten involved in, very much involved in some of the work that's been going on, particularly with our mentoring program. So.
Sort of like the personal handler of new teachers.
Personal trainer.
It was a really great group, I have to say. They were really impressive. I think we've hired great people, so compliments to the principals and to Chris for doing the hiring. They really seemed to be a really savvy group. They came with a lot of background knowledge. They were current. So a lot of things we talked about were pretty easy to go through very quickly. So after the morning and the introductions, and they learned a little bit about the school system, we actually kept them for a couple hours to talk about writing across the curriculum, because writing in every content area is very important to student achievement, helps you clarify what you know, it helps long-term memory, it helps you explore ideas. So we had all of the teachers, K through 12, in a workshop together, and even though Chris told the new teachers to focus on their first year, their classroom, their students, I had already gotten one of our new people, Laura Cronin, who's the new director of English at the high school, the new department head, to work with me on that workshop. So I had to undo what he said, because I already made somebody raise their hand and volunteer for something. But she was great. So she hit the ground running. We did plan the first hour or so together, and then we separated them into groups. She took the high school people. She's extremely knowledgeable, and as they are, and they went through an awful lot in a short period of time. And I went through the rest of the program with the K through 8 teachers. It was really a good morning. We learned a lot, got through a lot of stuff. They have great resources that we bought them about writing, and we also bought them what I consider the Bible, The Skillful Teacher, which is put out by Research for Better Teaching, the same professional development company that's been around for a long time. And it really is about the art and science of teaching, and our teachers here don't have that. And our observation and evaluation system is based on the RBT model of supervision and evaluation. So why not give teachers the book that talks about how to really be a good teacher when it comes to the art of teaching and the science? So we are going to include that starting this year in all of the new teacher orientation, so that they actually, it's no secret. So when people come and use the language of RBT to observe and evaluate you, in terms of your principal, your director, that you've actually had some training in what good teaching is. So we're going to use that book throughout the year in our meetings with new teachers. We have 3 co-chairs of the mentoring program, Nancy Steves, Valerie Ball, and Cindy Karolikas, one at each level. And we've met throughout the summer. We've planned the whole year of the new teacher mentoring program. The mentors came today. We had mentors and new teachers going over the expectations for the program. And then they were off in the afternoon to actually have some personal mentoring. So that's today. Tomorrow they get training in email, a Power Teacher, which is a system we use for grade book, student information, attendance, and curriculum updates. After that, we're going to have a lovely bus tour with our town historian, Jack Gosselette. And once again, complimentary lunch at the Gillette Stadium. So, be great second day.
And as I said to the new teachers, I have to stop referring to that luxury box as my luxury box.
was gonna say that.
I really know it isn't, but in the back of my mind, I
But
just
I'd like
continue
to
to
like
think
this box.
that it, anyway.
I'd also just like to, once again, how much I appreciate living in the community of Foxboro because we work together. Jack Gosselette has put together, once again, Foxboro, the community in context for the new teachers, and it is 5 pages, and it gives a capsule. Prepare for Teacher and Staff Orientation, August 26, 2008, and at Foxboro Today, the population. All breakdowns each year. He tweaks it, previews of coming events. He tweaks it for the incoming teachers. But this is the kind of community that we live in. And I want to say thank you, Mr. Jack Gosselette, for being the kind of person you are and loving history as much as you do, and for contributing to our school system.
Could we get a copy of that in our next packet? I think that'd be great. That would be awesome.
I think special thanks go to the craft organization, the stadium. They're
Again,
incredible what
Right.
they do.
Well,
for
and
us.
they're mentioned
They
in here
really-
too.
No, I realize that, but we really, they're doing a tremendous job of helping us wherever they can, and we really
Well,
do
and in
appreciate it.
enriching Foxboro as a community.
okay, and our final back-to-school update has to do with our facilities, and I'll ask Michael Leary, our facilities manager, to come up and talk a little bit about the projects that as people mentioned earlier, and I've had an opportunity over the last week to visit all of our schools. We are ready, which is always a good thing. But we have accomplished a lot as well, as you can see just from walking into Foxborough High School tonight. So, Mike.
Actually, this has been a very productive summer. The thing that amazes me how fast 8 weeks go by when you're trying to accomplish what we want to do. We did partake in some projects this year. The first one we got a jump start on. One of them was remodeling the football locker room up at the Argo School. I don't know if any of you have ever seen it. It was showing its age. The minute town meeting approved the CIP funds for the lockers, we managed to get a head start in May on that. Part of the problem was we had about 104 old metal lockers that we didn't know what to do with, that we had to dispose of. So we made a few phone calls, talked to State Line Scrap, and found out that scrap steel was going for about $100 and something a ton. So the Highway Department was very gracious in letting us use one of their large trucks. We made 4 trips over to State Line Scrap with all the old lockers and a lot of the old copper when we ripped out the old abandoned showers, and managed to return about $1,100 to the town hall. So we accomplished 2 things. We got rid of the lockers and we made about $1,100. So once the locker room was emptied, we managed to paint ceilings, walls, floors, etc. And then the new lockers were installed August 12th. We painted the locker room blue and gold. You'd swear it's Michigan. It looks like, honest, it looks like a college locker room.
Good college.
It's very nice, and we actually moved, the freshman football used to be in a locker room up here, and soccer was down there. We figured we're going to flip-flop, and it'd be nice to have the whole football program in one spot for Coach Martinelli. So we moved the freshman football down there, redid that locker room, and then moved the soccer up here into this existing locker room. So right now, the locker room is being used, football is back, and Jack Martinelli is thrilled. It come out very nice. So that was one project like I say, we managed to get a jump start on. The lockers did come in time. He promised us August 12th.
Just to interrupt for just for a minute, Mike, I think it's important to note that the committee, when we were discussing some of the issues around that locker room and some of the problems with bacteria and all of that, we were very concerned about making sure that as we have looked at all of the spaces in our athletic program here, knowing that we had one of our big programs over at another school. So, I also want to thank the committee for supporting the capital budget in this, and for the town to support the capital budget, because it gives us an opportunity, as we talked about, to have all of the equipment, the pads and all of the individual players' equipment. As we saw that locker, some of you may remember the locker that we showed here at one of our meetings was the locker that we purchased, and it really gives an opportunity for all of that to dry out at night, and it's well ventilated, and so there's some real, besides being just a terrific facility now, there's some real good health reasons why this has also been a very good idea.
Great. The other move, the other project we undertook was moving pre-K from the IGO down to the borough. To do that, there was a logistics problem. The classrooms that we were going to occupy in the borough were being occupied by Spoke. They had a program that went till August 13th. The pre-K program went till August 6th. We couldn't flip-flop them till they were over. Wouldn't give us much time to get the classrooms ready, so it was decided the minute school got out in June, we actually moved Spoke to the Ahern temporarily. That gave us an opportunity to paint, clean, and prepare the rooms down at Borough. So as soon as the classes ended August 6th for pre-K, we immediately moved them down to the Borough. That gave us a week to get the rooms ready at the IGO, to paint them, clean them, and so on. And then we moved Spoke again from the Ahern up to their home in the IGO. So it actually worked out well. We had two moves for Spoke, but logistically it worked out very well. It gave us plenty of time to prepare the rooms, to clean and paint them, etc. So the other problem in moving pre-K down to Borough was the playground was not age appropriate. So we had pre-K students going in there. So we built a new playground, which is age appropriate. It had to be fenced, and we used age appropriate equipment. So that was installed. In fact, they were just installing the last piece of equipment and putting the fence up today. So that's all set, ready to go. So that move went very well. The other one, the CIP committee approved the last of the elementary schools to abate the asbestos tile. A few years ago, we did part of the IGO, and we down the borough, did the borough, went back to the IGO and finished that. This year it was the Taylor's turn. This one was kind of difficult because the 8 classrooms that we were doing were adjacent or surrounding the cafeteria, which we were going to abate, along with the kitchen and along with the corridors. Even though the corridors weren't asbestos tile, those were changed a good 12, 14 years ago. The installation was very poor. The floors looked terrible. So we decided, let's get them up, make it all one color, and make the surface nice and level for the tile. So the problem was we had to move 8 of these classrooms all the way down to the gym, which is at the opposite end of the building. They finished the 8 classrooms. We got them cleaned, waxed, and ready to go. We could not move the furniture because they had to do the cafeteria and then they had to do the corridor. And I'll tell you, 2 weeks ago, we were a little bit nervous that this thing's going to go right down to the wire. My many thanks to Jack Hadigan and John Russell for getting that building ready, and for the high school kids that we use. I'll tell you, they humped furniture like you wouldn't believe. So that building, thank God, is completed, ready to go. If you've seen it, get down and look at it. It's marvelous. It makes the cafeteria look much larger with the new tile. The problem down there we had in that building versus IGO and Borough was the kitchen here had to be done. The other 2 buildings had quarry tile kitchen floor. This was vinyl asbestos, so we had to move every piece of kitchen equipment out: steamers, cookers, ovens, etc., which just kind of complicated a little more, but it's back together, and I'm very pleased. The other thing we did at Taylor was we removed the old playground out back, the one that was somewhat dangerous with the old tires and the pressure-treated timbers and telephone poles, etc. We removed that. the hill was loomed and seeded. So we promised we'd do that, and that was completed. The other project here, just a small job here at the high school, they were shot one math class. So we took an old computer room that was originally designed as one that the math department used as an office and a meeting room. We demoed some walls, cut in a few doors into adjacent room, and converted that into
Why do we
a
need
classroom.
the Mass Building Association? Why don't we just put Mike as the head
No, it's not
engineer
there.
on the project?
Because we need their money.
Oh, we need their money.
Yeah.
I have enough.
You never have.
So, that was just a couple of projects. And then, along with that, we do the routine. If you stop, we have 5 buildings in the course of the summer with our 19 custodians and then some of the summer help that we supplement them with. We actually empty every single room in every single building into the corridors, wash walls, wash windows, strip, wax floors, wash the furniture, and put it back. Now, that's every single room in every building. And then when we're done, we have to work our way back and do the corridors.
Herculean task.
This year, we used a little over 800 gallons of wax, somewhere around 830 gallons. We're one of the few schools that still do their own gym floors. A lot of the districts will contract out their gym floors to have them sanded, refinished. We don't do that. We feel it's more cost-effective to do it ourselves. So we have 2 gyms down at the Ahern School. We have the one at the IGO, and then we have this huge monster here. But we refinish them. We use about 60 gallons of urethane finish on the floors when we're
60?
done for all the gyms. So, again, my thanks to my custodians and to the summer help I use. They do a fabulous job, as you can see, and I'm very proud of them. Any questions?
I would move to ask the chairman to just draft a letter to go to all of the employees that work for Mike, thanking them for the tremendous work that they've done. I mean, we commented before we came in about what they did, but we should probably have the chairman send them a nice thank you letter. And so I would ask the chairman to do
I
that.
also think, Mike, I would like you to extend on our behalf an invitation to all of them to join us for a thank you on September 8th. We had meant to get that on the agenda, but with everything at the end of the year, it did not. So I think we should make room on the agenda on November 8th.
Yep.
Yeah, we usually do the beginning of the school year to thank them. This is, so it's
No,
very
but I
timely.
mean, we have not brought them in to personally thank them, and
Since
I would
last
like to,
September.
I would like to have the team come in.
I think that's
We
great.
can make room on the
should come in.
agenda.
Yeah,
for
absolutely,
that.
under recognition.
September 8th?
Yes.
Our next meeting. Thank
Excellent.
you.
Mike, was there some work done at the IGO playground?
Oh, yeah, that was...
I thought I saw
Well,
some trucks
they
there
did.
a
They-
little while ago.
But I'll give them credit. I had virtually nothing to do with that. That was the PTO. They actually funded that. They
The
made
IGO
the
PTO?
arrangements. The IGO, yep, the Parent Teachers Association actually paid for that piece of equipment, had it installed. I mean, we had some input and so on, but I'll give them credit. I had very little to do with that, and they did a great job. So, yeah.
I saw that.
I think it's,
And I don't know if you noticed, also, come to think of it, Buddy Brackett donated quite a bit of his time. When they did the playground down at the Taylor School, they sold patio blocks of bricks with engraved. Well, he did all the pavers and the entrance to the school going in on both sides, and all the pavers are in. So now they're just going to remove and have them engraved and put back in again. And the Patriots, there's 2 beautiful granite plaques in there with a thank you to the Kraft family for their donation for the playground. So if you look in the Taylor going into the entrance, the pavers are there, they're just waiting to be engraved. So it looks very nice. And again, thank you to Buddy Brackett for that.
We should recognize him as well for his work, and we should recognize the PTO for their fundraising and their efforts.
One question. I'm almost afraid to ask because I've been asking it for so many years, and I don't want to jinx us. Are we finally all done with asbestos? I know we think we're done, and then we find another little
No.
pocket.
No,
We-
well, no, there's,
The
Part
high school,
of-
we have the high school.
Well, the high
the
school,
high
I
school
mean,
is
and
still
the
done.
elementary.
As far as
Elementary, we're done.
tile gone,
Not going.
there's still in a couple of small hidden places, which is inside walls and so on, which isn't a problem. There's still some pipe covering and so on, but you do that when you go and expose the pipe.
Right.
You don't go
Don't go
digging, looking for trouble. But as far as floor tile goes now, the Taylor was the last to have all the abatement, floor tile abatement done. Yes, thank goodness. Believe me, it's, I'm
And of
glad
course,
to
the
see
Ahern
that.
didn't have it at the high school, that would, the classroom floors, the.
And classroom floors,
Would be taken care of with the
yeah,
renovation,
yeah.
so.
And some of the fire coating we have to remove in here. That'll be done
Right, with the ventilation.
hopefully during the renovation.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
But I just wanted to add, while Mike's crew always has, I mean, summer's always one of the busiest times, but that was Herculean. I mean, the amount of work they actually did this summer was, let's just say, a little bit out of proportion to what it usually would be, even in a busy season. So I can't believe how much they accomplished, really, and they're all still standing, well, at least today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Enjoy the Labor Day weekend.
School opens Tuesday.
Unless you need to come in for something that still needs to be finished up.
Yeah, he'll probably be in to start those boilers up at the high school, remember? So-
Oh, my, wow. Massachusetts School Building Authority. That would be you and Mr. Jackson, right?
Yes, as we will talk about in some more detail when we talk about the goals, and as I've mentioned to a number of groups, including the committee at our planning retreat, this is a major project that will, when we accomplish it, and I say when because I believe we will put this school back to really where it should be. So for the public's benefit, because I hope that we're going to continue to bring this topic up as we learn more as we go along. The Massachusetts School Building Authority is a new, relatively new authority under the treasurer, State Treasurer Tim Cahill's office, and has new rules and regulations, and has one area for schools that schools can apply to that's called the repair area, and that's the area that we put a bid in, and we were accepted last November, December, and we've been working with them. I say we, Paul, Mike, and others have been working closely with them to figure out the rules as we go along, and as I said, they are new, so we're trying to help them with some of that as well. But the opportunity for us to repair this school, Foxboro High School, and put it back to where really it should be in a number of different ways is an important goal for this school committee and for the community, quite frankly, for the community, because this is the school. I mean, it's not unusual for high schools to be kind of a lighthouse of a school district, and this is really what this is. And even though it's been, and they acknowledged it, and we've acknowledged it, and we're happy that we've been acknowledged as having a very well cared for school that is 38, 37 years old now, it needs work. And I'll give Paul Jackson an opportunity to talk a little bit about what the process is. But I want to frame this because it's something that we want to continue to bring up, hopefully each month, to talk about different aspects of the school, because I want the community to understand how important it is for us to be able to renovate or to repair all of the areas that we've identified at Foxboro High School, to be able to do that in a way that over the next few years will really create another state-of-the-art building that we'll be very proud of. So, Paul?
As the committee is aware, we issued a request for services for the services of an owner's project manager. We issued 22 requests. We had a walk through the building on August 6th? August 6th? First week in August. We expected 6 people to attend, 5 showed up. We weren't sure what we would get in terms of responses. We actually received 4 responses to our request for services. In conjunction with Bill Yukna, the decision was made we'd interview all 4 candidates. Candidates were interviewed last Thursday, and from that interview process, we developed a rating list and submitted our draft, and I say draft, an email of the documentation that will go to MSBA today with our final selection on the owner's project manager. The next part of this, they'll review all of our paperwork, let us know what part is acceptable and what part isn't, and then they expect us to be into Boston on the 8th of September with our finalist, assuming that they approve our finalist, for a meeting, and then the next step will be to sit down and negotiate a contract with the owner's project manager. Once that project is in place, we'll then embark on the process of hiring a designer to come in and develop the design and the specifications. All throughout this process, it will be pretty much a partnership with MSBA to do this. With the expectation we'll have money, dollar amounts available for Maytown meeting as to what the estimated cost is on the project.
And Paul, it's fair to say that there's no shortage of paperwork required by the state in this new process?
That would be a very fair statement.
We almost need a full-time, not project manager, full-time paper person just to handle all the paper that has to be done for it. But it is a first time through, and we're trying to be a model for this, and I think that when we're done, it will showcase a best practice going forward in working with older but well-managed buildings.
And we mentioned that the other night to our bidders and to the owner's project manager group, that we felt that we wanted, one of our criteria was to make sure that we had someone who understood that we want to be a model, that we want someone to be able to walk us through that and to be able to manage the project as we move along in a way that we can then show other school districts who have these kinds of issues in their schools how to do this work.
So you submitted one name then from the 4 to the MSBA, and you're waiting for approval from them?
Well, we actually submitted 4 names, but we ranked
Okay.
the order and indicated which one we would prefer. And not that Michael Leary needs another pat on the back, but I would like to say that during the walkthrough of the building, I think it was a unanimous discussion amongst the people who were doing this walkthrough that they were astounded at the condition of this building, given its age and its use. And this was well before everything was put back together and washed and waxed. But they really uniformly expressed amazement that it was in the kind of condition that it was in.
So they have the ultimate say which person we get,
Yes.
even though you've ranked them?
Yes.
Oh.
They have to approve our
The
our
expectation is that they will support our choice because the rationale that we are submitting will be so
Support
clear
that.
and
Okay.
concise that they would go along with it.
And you're supposed to be, we're supposed to be notified when, in terms of who that, which one has been approved? Or we
Sometime
don't-
between now and September 8th,
Oh.
because September 8th, we have to have a finalist into Boston with us for a meeting.
So before September. We don't know when there might be the town meeting or when we're coordinating with that to see, because as soon as we get the okay, we have to be, I guess, the question, do the selectmen have we briefed the selectmen and we reminded them June 24th, but will we be ready to go and have that on the town meeting? To have it on the
Well,
warrant? So
that's
are
the
we
goal.
getting close enough that we
Actually,
need to remind them to get the warrants ready?
It was interesting, if I recall, last Thursday night, more than one of the interested parties asked us how we were setting this timeline. And so we told them that we were setting it from town meeting backwards. So we need to hit all of these marks. And, there's some concern about that early on, given that this is a new process. But we felt that if we hit the annual town meeting, that would give us an opportunity to at least do all the all the work, and MSBA knows this as well, too, because Paul, I know, has been talks to them very frequently, and has said to them that this is our goal. We want to be able to, in the meantime, inform the public as we go along, and Kate, you reminded me that after September 8th, we'll need to again visit with the selectmen, because that's also going to be part of our process, to let the community know and to continue to let the selectmen know that but Andy Gaylor is involved in this with us. Paul talks to Andy regularly because he has a specific role that I'm
He
not
ultimately is
recalling.
the financial person because he has the Massachusetts
That's it.
Certified Public Purchasing Official designation. I think
Which we need someone in the community that has that.
Yes,
So
yes.
so Andy has
He has.
generously offered his support on this as well. So we really want to make this a community opportunity, but we have taken the May date and backed all of the planning behind that so that we could hit, which is why, some might say, gee, you just mailed the information into MSBA today. How do you know that they're going to act on it this quickly and schedule that September 8th date? Well, we've said to them, if we're going to hit all of the benchmarks that we need to hit, we're going to have to move quickly on that. And again, since it's a new exercise for all of us, including the state, it'll be interesting to see as we move along whether we have to adjust any dates or anything like that. But it is, that's what we're shooting for town meeting, to be able to make a presentation with the number that we need to go forward, with the dollar figure that we need to go forward.
And given that they start in September, will that give that, we had said that whole process would take at least a year. They won't really have a full year, but we're confident that that will be okay.
If everything works well, we also have talked about this. If everything,
Secret weapon in the audience there.
Well, if everything works well, we've talked about wanting to get started on this project next summer. I mean, that means all the approvals from the state and certainly from the community. I mean, the community is a shared partner in this financially. So we would.
Keep in mind, we already, before we started the process, hired an outside firm to come in and help us think through what would have to be done and kind of how it would have to be done. So we're not starting from total square zero. We've done a lot of work. It is going to be a challenge getting it done in time for May. But Paul and Chris and the whole team has committed, and the state's committed to do everything they can to get it done by then, because they recognize that town meetings in these communities happen in the late spring and they happen in the fall. And if you miss the spring date, it creates issues for everybody. So all we can say is that we're doing the best we can to make that date, and we're pushing everybody to do that.
Well, Larry, I agree with you. I just think that, again, we can't over-communicate. So that's why it's, again, just very timely, just like the challenging our most abled. If with that, we just need to educate people, so.
But one of the keys is going to be how fast the state allows us to select an architectural firm, number one, and then how quickly that architectural firm can put everything together so we can price it out and then have it for town meeting. So we're going to be somewhat at the mercy of our architect and engineers in the state and let us select the right one, and then how fast and how big a team they will put on it so we can have everything in place for town meeting.
And Mike, I presume that as we have those dialogues with those candidates, we will articulate very clearly that one of the heavy weighting factors is their ability to get on board quickly and to meet the timelines that we have. Now, if they all came back and said the timelines are undoable, unmakeable, then we'll reevaluate it at that point. But at this point, everybody is trying to push for May. In my view, the worst that could happen is we miss the May and we don't wait until October for a town meeting. We work with the selectmen to call a special town meeting just for this issue. And we reach out to the community to come forward and support, because there's going to probably have to be two things that we have to do, remember. One is town meeting is going to have to approve the funding, and it's probably going to be asked to approve it as a debt exclusion. And then if town meeting approves it as a debt exclusion, it has to go on the ballot. So there are a couple of steps that have to happen. And if there is a fall election in that September-October timeframe that we can key into, then that gives us a little bit of flexibility if we miss the May date to call a special town meeting, to get the approval. But again, we have to work with the town clerk's office, because if it's going to be on a ballot, we have to kind of work backwards there. So there's lots of moving parts, and we're just doing the best we can to.
The sad part of it is it will probably lose a summer, but there's a lot of work that can be done during the year, window replacement, roof, etc. There's just certain things we can't do while students are in the building. So we just lose that summer, it just pushes it out another year, so, for completion.
I still say my money's on Paul Jackson and Mike O'Leary.
My buddy's up, Paul.
Well, Chris, like you said, you're going to be giving us monthly updates.
Yeah.
And
Right.
obviously with these timelines, reporting to the Board of Selectmen as well, to keep them apprised of what's happening in the community, so.
Right,
It's
and
all-
we will, we can put it as as Paul mentioned, September 8th happens to be the date of our next school committee meeting, so we'll put it on the agenda. Whether we know more from the state, we'll really know that right at the end of that meeting, whether we have anything to report on. But we also, I believe, want to take parts of what the project will be, and to be able to inform the public through these meetings, to be able to say, you know, we know we have window replacement, we know we have single pane windows, and that we know that they're not efficient in terms of energy, and that if we had these kinds of windows, we see this kind of difference. The heating and ventilation system is another good example. You know, the science labs is a great example of something that we'll be spending some time talking about. What's the present state of the science lab, and what are our designers saying should be a new science lab? What should a new science lab entail? So that is all the work that we really believe the community needs to know more and more about this, as we know more and more about it as we move along. So it's going to be a real key.
One thing that might help the committee, though, is if, as you have in your mind, May, working backwards, all the key milestone dates, you might want to give that to the whole committee, so that in addition to the monthly updates, the committee members can see what's coming up in 2 months and in 3 months, and if we start to slip behind, whether or not we can make it up or not. I think a visual will make it easier for the committee.
Good.
That's a great idea, Larry.
So.
Okay. All right.
Let's see, next time we get them. School district goals for 2008, 2009.
Okay, why don't I get this started? As I mentioned in the cover memo, this was a compilation, and I think I mentioned, and I think we put on a draft so that people would be aware. This is a compilation of our off-site school committee meeting that we held on July 30th, and again, I think we had a terrific session where we had an opportunity to review the goals that we had set, and then to talk about how do we frame new goals, or how do we continue to extend the goals that we already have, because we know that we're not finished yet. And then, as I mentioned earlier, when we talked about our administrators retreat that we had last Monday, August 18th at Gillette Stadium, we spent a good part of the morning talking about goals. So the work that we've been able to do in the last week is really to try to take all of the thinking, and there's certainly areas that we may not have captured completely and may not have even captured accurately, or as accurately as we should. So I thought tonight we would spend time talking about how do we refine these more. Remember, last year we really spent a good part of the fall working through these activities. We started with having Glenn Kuchar at an offsite in September, helping us to frame that. The other thing that I did in consultation with the administrative team is really talked about, well, we're actually setting goals together in this. And I know last year, given that we were working through the goal-setting process, we set school committee goals and superintendent's goals, which are actually administrators' goals, and they ended up being pretty much the same goals, other than, and I took that out, other than the fact that you had put in on your goals sheet evaluating me. Well, that's part of what you do and would naturally do anyway. We've put that process in place. So I think we know how that is working. So I'm open to discussion if that's what the work that I've done in other communities. I know Debbie has done in other communities in terms of getting the goals to kind of come together collaboratively, so they become the school district's goals guided by the school committee, and then we have, for lack of a better term, our marching orders from those to really work through, and that's what you evaluate me and our administrative. I evaluate our administrators on. So.
Just had a couple of comments, Chris. On a few of these, for instance, develop a comprehensive communication plan. Refine the strategic plan and district improvement plan targets. There are no approximate dates, whether it be by quarter or by month.
Right.
And I'm not asking us to nail it down to the last minute,
Right.
but I do think that we should try to establish some timetables, so when we're going to have these and then when we're going to update those. And again, we talked about this last year. The team was fairly new and we were kind of behind the eight ball in doing it. I don't want to force a date either on the committee or administration, but I do think we ought to come back and have a dialogue as to what kind of timeframes are reasonable, and make sure that the two things that I'm concerned about are, number one, that we can measure it. There's a way to measure success, and that there's a timeline for it. And I think that while the concepts I agree with totally, I think we can do a little bit more work on how we're going to measure, and a little bit more work on the timelines.
Right.
But I think it's a great start.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that, and that's a good way to jump into this, I think, in terms of how do we measure and when do we want to measure. We mentioned, and I'm open to how we want to go through this process, so we could put out some dates and some times and look at
Well,
some.
one thing that I think might be maybe more efficient is if maybe you and the chair and the vice chair were to meet.
Okay.
You can go through all of this. You can work through that level of detail, share it back with us so that when we have a discussion at a public session, you've done a lot of the legwork, we've seen that, and then it's, I think, a more productive discussion than simply trying to discuss 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 of us all at one time, kind of a thing. So that's just my view, that I think you, the vice chair, and the chair could take a look at that. They could get back to us, and we'll give them feedback, and then we'll have a public discussion around it.
That seems reasonable.
I'm comfortable with that, but I'll also sit down with you. I agree with Larry. This is a great start. This is very much what we agreed on, so I thank you for doing this. For me, it needs measurements, and sometimes if we don't have a measurement may in fact be a timeline. So it's kind of either or. Last year, we were very committed because of our own accountability. If we were going to do this, we wanted measurements, and then we backed off. I think I would be much more comfortable to have you and the administrators give us the timeline than to have us self-imposed. I am not at all comfortable with that. So I would, and sometimes it may be appropriate to say in such quarter that you're going to have this done. It may not be from an educational point of view. So I also would like to defer to you, Dr. Martis, and the administrators, but for me, this is a great start, but it's not nearly enough on measurements. And we know we want a comprehensive communication plan. We're all committed and united. We did a great job last year, but so what? Unless we can articulate what we mean by that and what specifically will be accounted, it's not good enough the way we have it. It's just a brush. It's not a complete stroke.
Now, I'll give you an example of the communication thing. Last year, this committee did a fair amount of work on drug and alcohol awareness in the community. And we supported lots of different efforts. We put some funding together. We brought some speakers in, etc. When you look over the last 3 to 4 months in all of the local communities, we've had too many accidents, too many people hurt, some of which was related to the plans that we put in place to try to help educate people. And in fact, there was a letter to the editor this week that really talked, Patty Ann talked about the fact that parents really are afraid and that students need to understand that this is serious. So when we talk about a communication plan, I'd like to see some specificity around what would make up the communication plan, because I think that the work we started last year, and I say started because I think at least in the 2 years that I've been on the committee, we didn't do very much the first year at all on it, and last year we did a lot more. But I think there's a lot more that we need to do, and I think that her letter in the newspaper really clearly tried to rally the community around the fact that we need to do more. So when we talk about communication, there are many aspects of the communication plan, and I don't want to just see a communication plan in the first quarter. I'd like to see some things that we would like to be communicating, be educating on, and it doesn't have to be a long list. We can pick 2 or 3 items this year. One of them obviously would be the education on the high school and the repair. So pick 3 or 4 key topics that you think would be important, and let's at least lay those out so that as all of us are thinking through the year, and maybe we come across an article in another newspaper, we come across something, if it ties to one of those 3 or 4 key communication plans, then we can leverage some of that as well.
I would also just like to throw in, I like the fact that you have 4 goals, but we need to not let go as a group of evaluating the superintendent's performance, and I know that we wouldn't, based on what you just said and the process you outlined. However, I think it gets very confusing. Martha, you've been on here for years and years. What happens is then we have district goals. Been there, done that. People forget that we're evaluating your performance. Even though we have a new tool, it gets watered down. So let's keep it simple. If we say we have these 5 goals, then those are our 5 goals. And I like the fact that you're going to take them and push them downward in the organization. But I don't want to leave off number 5, the superintendent's performance, because we will get somebody from the community who says, you're not doing your job. So I think if we keep it simple and we
But
keep
we are,
it...
that's part and parcel of the understanding of our job, Kate.
Right. For me, it's budget, it's policy, it's the superintendent's performance, so I would like it written
I was
as
going to
such.
say, you want it actually
I
written
want it
down,
written.
even though it's assumed.
It's
that's
assumed.
what
It's
we-
not good enough for me.
Yeah,
It
I
really
hear what you're
needs to
saying.
be those 5 things. We're consistent from year to year. We don't skip a step and run before we're walking, because I think it been there, done that, and we sometimes, the more things change, the more things stay the same. So I'd like it, stay the course and keep it.
Well, what it reiterates, though, Kate, I think, is that lots of people think that if you're on the school committee, you control lots of things. Or if you're on the selectmen, you control lots of things. And that's reality is it isn't. And so sometimes when I get a call and someone's complaining about something, I remind them that we're responsible for budget, the hiring and firing of the superintendent, and the value. There's only certain things that we're required for. So it does give us an opportunity to constantly reinforce that in the current legislation, the superintendent is the chief executive officer of the school district, and there's a fine line that the school committee members can't cross, and that reinforces what our roles are and what our roles aren't. And so from that standpoint, I think it's good to reinforce that. Because people do think that we're all powerful.
Because for years and years, we had district goals, but because it didn't specifically say, people assumed we weren't doing it, which wasn't correct either.
Yeah,
So
but,
I'd like to keep it. I agree with you, Larry. We said we were going to do 5 things. Let's do those 5 things. Let's say what we mean and mean what we say. I'm all for that.
Yeah, but to me, the superintendent's review is our duty. It's not a goal. It's
It
not a
should
district
be.
goal. It's our duty. That's what we do as a committee. It's not, to me, it's not a district goal. That's a given.
I disagree.
That's
I
a
disagree.
given.
It starts at the top, and we hold the superintendent accountable for doing his reviews on the principals, and the principals are held accountable for managing performance of our staff. I never want to lose sight of that.
Yes, but
Yeah, but
we are
it's not
responsible.
goal.
What happens is,
Given.
I agree with Martha on this. The district goals become the superintendent's goals and the delivery of those goals. His evaluation is not part of his delivery of those goals. It is our responsibility to rate him on the delivery of the district goals. His evaluation is not his responsibility, that's ours, and it is innate by the fact that you're sitting as a member of the school board.
I will tell you that I have looked and reviewed district goals for years and years and years. In fact, I will be over 5 years. And what happened, Kathleen Tyrrell had district goals. She sat and met with her administrators, but there was a lot of flack that was given that the school committee was not doing its job because it was not stated. All I'm saying is,
Well,
let's
that
not...
was because it was never allowed to be made public.
Well,
That's
no,
why we were...
Bev, you were on the committee with me, and we did have them, and they were released.
I don't think anybody's disagreeing, though, that we want to evaluate the superintendent. That's the
We
point.
have
But it's
to,
a
that's,
given, it's not a
it's
goal.
a given, it's not
I
a
know, but I
goal.
think is it just formally, putting it down, saying that's what we're going to do? We're going to do it anyway, but we're all in
We have
agreement
to
about
do
that.
it.
It's just including that as a stated goal, which again makes it more transparent for everyone, the community and the committee as a whole, to say that is something that we're.
Have you ever seen it listed as a goal?
No, because it's your authority
It's not
to do
a
that.
district goal.
but-
If we
It's not.
want that
That's
as
what I'm
part
saying.
of our specific school committee goals that we suddenly set up for ourselves, that's all right.
Right, but couldn't
that's-
you phrase it in a broader sense? To say that the goal is to make sure that evaluations are completed at all levels as appropriate, which would say, the goal is for us to make sure Chris's is done, for Chris's to make sure all of his direct reports and the principals accept, for the principals to make the teachers. One of the criticisms in the EQA report dealt with how well teachers were getting evaluated. And so I would agree with Kate that what's an important goal is that evaluations at all levels throughout the district be completed on a timely basis in a constructive way with improvement plans. And you can keep it as general as that, but it implies that they're going to be all the way from the chief executive officer to everyone else that is supposed to be evaluated. And it can be written in a general way to talk about the comprehensive process that has to be followed. We were criticized in the EQA report for some of the lackadaisical ways that we evaluated staff. And we committed as a result of that report that we would improve the coaching, the training, the mentoring, the evaluations, all of that kind of stuff. So it would make sense to me to have a district goal that covers it in that broader sense. Doesn't have to specifically say Chris's evaluation, but it refers to evaluations for all covered employees, that they should be done timely and constructively with action plans appropriate. And I'd be okay with that.
I don't know if it's going to be helpful, but I think sometimes you think about it in another example. If you have written as a school committee goal, I think, speaking to your point, would be similar to having Chris as his superintendent's goals to say he will evaluate principals.
Correct.
I mean, that's
the flow down.
you would not really expect to see that printed because you expect that he's doing that. So I don't know if you would list that as a specific goal for him. So I think
But
is
the
that what you're
problem is
saying about not listing it?
EQA cited us for weaknesses in that area in the past. So even though the committee assumed it was being done, and the committee assumed it was done well, the outside auditors came in and said it isn't being done well. So therefore, I don't think it's inappropriate, based on our prior poor performance, and I'm not saying that any doubts at all with Chris, but based on that, I think we have an obligation to the public to say, we had an audit, we had weaknesses, we agreed we were going to have corrective action of those weaknesses, and for the next year or two, we're going to include to make sure that we're in great shape on that. And then when we're in great shape, if you want to then say, it's part of the policy and procedures and not part of the goals and objectives, it's okay. Maybe you make it an even broader goal that says, hey, listen, we're going to have something in here relative to every single issue that was, and you do it in a global way, that was brought up in the EQA audit, and we're going to make sure those are addressed. I still think there are things in there that we have to continue to work on. We need to make sure we're continuing to focus in on them. Things like, for instance, they brought up the amount of absenteeism and how that was a shock to some of us to see how high that was, and they were shocked with the lack of an action plan to address it. We committed as a committee that we would address those issues. So I don't really care whether we take it under the broad category of EQA or we take it under the goals and objectives, but it's important to me that we make sure that if EQA came in tomorrow or next month or next year, that the issues that they found deficient in the past are not deficient any longer. And so however you'd want to address that, that's fine from that standpoint. We've already seen improvement in leadership and in terms of training and education and the kinds of things that you've brought forward. So I don't know that we're asking for any additional work in the sense that you're already doing outstanding work in each of these areas, but I think we owe it to the town to document the progress we've made against the EQA recommendations, as well as anything else that we've talked about as a committee. And I just don't want us to lose sight of the EQA report.
I agree with you, Larry.
And it's easy, I think it's easy for a committee to fall in love with the superintendent. We have a great superintendent. We have one of the best in the state. We have one of the best in the country. So it's easy to fall in love and then just assume everything's going to get done. I have no doubt it's all going to get done. But we do have the responsibility for making sure that stuff gets documented, and that's, I think, all we're asking.
Exactly.
It's not a vote on anything to do with confidence at all.
And that's why my goal is to say school committee goals. You may have your district goals, because that's what I'd expect of a leader of your caliber, to push it down through the organization. But at the end of the day, I want mine that says school committee goals, because when we meet, we even now have a policy when we talk about this in the book. I want to be able to say these are the school committee goals, and I know for me, I want those 5 items. So you can tell how strongly I feel, because I agree with Larry. We need to put a marker in on EQA, and because it'll be 2 years.
Larry, maybe you could write up the broad statement that, I like the way you began phrasing that, but you've said so much I don't have it verbatim. Having heard it only once.
That's a
Well,
problem
perhaps
I
we
have.
all should get with Chris and give Chris our
but
feedback if he'd like it,
Well, you could-
and then he can do
I'll
with
work
what he
with
wants.
Chris.
The broad statement.
Sure. Okay.
Well, you do bring up the question, Kate, of school district goals versus school committee goals. And I think that's, something we're going to need to discuss as well. That is different from last year's goals. And yes, while I do agree, we definitely need school district goals, and they are going to be obviously in line with the school committee goals. Do we want to have a differentiation of that? It sounds like you're saying yes.
I
you
personally do,
Yeah.
because
but
that's, you
I
can
don't know
measure.
if we need to discuss
We
that
used to
now.
have district goals, and it got to be a very gray, argumentative area, and I just never want to go back down there where things are so positive. I don't ever want to go back down there again.
Yeah.
Maybe when I'm off the board, if you all want to. But I think it's very clean, it's very measurable, it's the 5 items. We even have your tools of the superintendent's evaluation. We even have performance management in there. Remember, we took out the words performance management because we wanted it superintendent's performance. But if we're really serious about student achievement, then performance management throughout the organization does go hand in hand. And we need to be able to say, just like in any organization, when it's running well, it's because that's a key piece. It's along with the curriculum, along with, communication, along with, that there's a performance management system and tools and a system in place, and that it's being utilized.
How does the committee feel about the goals, the way we did it last year versus what we're discussing tonight?
Well, I guess I would take it one step at a time. I'd like to see the chair and the vice chair work with Chris to take what's here today
Okay.
and then add the additional specificity we talked about in
Let's
terms
take
of
that.
in terms of timeline and in
Measurements.
terms of measurements, et cetera. And as part of that, I can work with Chris, and then he can feed it in through you guys, and you can coordinate kind of a broader one.
Okay.
I think that the school committee should have a set of goals and objectives that are aligned clearly with the superintendent's goals and objectives, and there's a lot of overlap between that. But there could be something unique to the school committee goals and objectives. For instance, one could say that we now have a policy that says we're going to review our policies on a regular basis. I would like to see an objective, a goal, that we say publicly, we will do a review of policies and procedures by next May, whatever it might be. Because that will force us, maybe March 18th, to say, oh my goodness, we haven't done that yet, we need to do it. So to me, there are some specific things that the school committee would be responsible for that it really has nothing to do with Chris and what he would push down and not push down. But things like I'll use a specific example in the evaluation. The problem we run into is if we wait too late in the year to do the evaluation, then by the time it's done, we've changed chairs, and the old chair kind of does the evaluation and does the consensus, pulls it all together, but this year, we then changed right around that. So Beverly allowed me to kind of finish that piece. You know, I think we ought to have a goal that allows the current chairman to finish that process prior to their being rotated, or whatever the term is. So I think for the school committee, I like Kate's idea to have some specific goals related to just us, specific dates or milestones that we can hold ourselves accountable to, and the voters can say, okay, as a school committee, you've either accomplished what you set out to do or you didn't accomplish what you set out to do. And I think it holds us accountable. 80% of that may be perfectly overlapped with Chris, but I think there's some percentage of it that is going to be unique just to us.
I agree.
And again, I'm comfortable with the chair and the vice chair putting together their proposal for that, what's that 20% extra that's not there, and then we talk about it as a committee, because if, as an example, you're working on that, Kate can give you her input as to what she would like to see in there, I could give you my input, and then when you come back to us, the dialogue of the debate will be a lot shorter than if we try to do it in a public session like this and spend 2.5 hours arguing back and forth. It'd just be more efficient, I think.
Okay with me.
Okay,
Sounds good.
we set a time.
So we are each to give our feedback to Chris on measurements and timelines?
And he'll work with the chair and the vice chair.
Right.
Okay,
All right.
are we ready to move on?
Yeah, I think we are.
And I would like to ask Mrs. Slattery to lead us if we have questions. Any questions on our first reading? And again,
Excuse me,
thank you.
Bev, before
Yeah.
we move on to that,
Right.
can I just add one more thing?
Certainly.
If it's possible. As we are talking through the goals and objectives, I think everybody knows Wendy Nelson, who's sitting in the audience. And Wendy's been doing a lot of research on how much states spend across the United States on programs that Chris gave us the new official wording. What did you call it?
Challenging our most able students.
Yeah, challenging our most able students. And when you look at some of the data that she's put together, it's embarrassing what the Northeast spends in that area versus many, many, many other states. I mean, we spend a drop in the bucket. And so I've asked Chris to set up a meeting with Wendy, with our state rep, our state senator, with Glenn Kuchar, and with whoever's in charge of the Massachusetts Association of Superintendents, for us to kind of dialogue through why does Massachusetts spend next to nothing versus Mississippi versus Colorado versus so many other states, and how do we get the state legislature to understand that, you know, maybe $10 million of seed money in the next budget, or maybe $5 million that could be written on a grant basis. Because if you think about it, and we've talked about it, when in our classrooms, and this is the reason I'm bringing this up because it's part of goals and objectives, in our classrooms we've talked about leveling as an example, okay? And as someone said to me as we were talking about that, the person said, well, Larry, let me throw this out to you. Why don't we level our sports teams? So let's say if there's 12 kids on the basketball team, everybody has to play the same amount of time. And if there's 60 kids on the football team, everybody plays the same amount of time. Let's stop saying, oh no, our best athletes play the starting rotation. Because see, in sports, we don't level. And so what this person said is, from an education standpoint, what are we doing to really motivate those students, like we do in sports, those really top performers? They get the play, they get the playing time, they get the exposure, they get the first team, everything. How do we do that for those students that are maybe bored because they're so far ahead? And so we're going to create a dialogue. We're going to talk to the state senator. We're going to talk to the state rep. We're going to show them some of the data that Wendy's put together that other states are doing, and try to build a business case with MASC and with the Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents to try to put some pressure on the legislature to start some seed money. because we are so far behind so many other states. And so Chris is in the process of trying to put that together. I know that I see Wendy sitting there tonight. So as we're putting together these goals and objectives, and we're putting together the district goals and objectives, we talked earlier about the program that Sue was putting together. The what? Renzula. We talked about FACES potentially funding that. So there are some dialogue now starting to happen about how we can bring funds into the school district through the local community, but we need to broaden that at the state level as well. So I wanted the public to know that through Wendy's hard work, we're putting a meeting together. We're going to try to get the state rep and the state senator, both whom I think are up for re-election, to understand the importance of this, to understand how dismal Massachusetts is compared to the rest of the country, and try to pique their interest. And along with that, I'd like to see in the goals and objectives some of the small steps. I know we're only talking small steps initially, but some of the small steps that we're planning on taking.
Yeah, and just to pick up on that, Larry, I think you make some terrific points that we've talked about putting a task force together to look at some of the research, some of the programs that are out there, look at, and we've already, we don't want to wait for that task force, which is why when we heard about Renzulli, we decided to get some information out, and that's not, I don't want anyone to leave the meeting tonight thinking that's the only piece of this that we're looking at, but we're looking at how can we seed some things to get some things started, evaluate as we go along to make sure it's effective with our most able kids, and then along the way look at some of the best practices and best programs that are out there, not just in Massachusetts, but as you mentioned, there's a lot going on around the country in this area. And really to look at, this is a district that's really poised to do that kind of work and really to do that. So as part of the goals, even to pick up on some earlier points that were made, those would be part of what we'd be talking about in terms of benchmarking and timeline and putting what do we really want to do in some of these areas. The corollary to that, and we only have one statement in that, is that I think all of you know with our new Director of Special Education, Arlene Gruber, on board just in this month, that she is being tasked with looking at our programs in special education, how we're meeting the needs of our kids and what types of things that we're doing across the system and outside the system in order to do that. So I think my sense is, because we had a very similar goal for this past year, we'll be breaking that goal apart and being more specific about it as we develop it.
And that's, I saw Wendy here. I know she's got an interest in this. I know you and I have talked at length about this. I knew you had that in mind, but we were moving on to a different topic. I didn't want to miss that opportunity.
Larry, you talk about this data. Is this data that you can share with the rest of the committee so that we can be aware of this? Because I think it's...
Chris, what about, I wouldn't just settle for the rep and the senator. Why not set up, once you've got it all put together, why not set up a meeting with Pat Haddad if she's still in charge? Because I think if you get somebody like her on board, and is Joan Cretan still her second in command on the
I'm not sure
education, whether or not? I mean, if you got those two excited about this, they're the ones that are going to be the movers and the shakers when it comes to
and
this.
That's why we thought,
not just two reps or a senator.
But no, that's why we thought having Mask, Len Kuchar, and the head of the Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents, if we can excite them as well, they become a real exponential communicator of the information.
The top person would be to go right to Pat Haddad, because I think she's somebody who really understands this and would really get excited and be on board about it if she had the data in front of her.
And just for the public, Pat Haddad is the chair of the Education Committee for the House.
Yeah. So she's a good one too.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Sorry, Bev, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I just didn't want to
No.
lose that topic.
It's better to tie in all the things that go together rather than jump back.
Well, can I just make a comment too? I mean, again, I think this is, this is something that, Wendy brought up, a parent brought to the committee, and it's really nice to see that, things are happening behind the scenes and that we're trying to address, issues that concerned parents have.
Right. And she's worked really hard, and I want the public to know that in my discussions with Wendy, this is about the community in total, and not about her own children. This is really, she has a passion for the community and a passion for how do we change what goes on in the state of Massachusetts so that when we talk about, and we've talked about as a committee, we don't know whether one of our students will be the person who invents a cure for cancer. We don't know if one of our students invents an alternative fuel for petroleum. We don't know if one of our students is going to be the future president. But we do know that if we're not nurturing our very brightest students, like we do our athletes, then some of them may go to other schools, and some of them simply may not be as motivated to reach the heights that they can reach. And when you look at some of these other states, what they're spending and the programs they have, and Wendy's actually done research on what some of these programs are, so she wants to actively work with Chris, actively work with the team in being part of this, and hopefully as we start to move down the road a little bit, we'll be able to broaden it and get more people from the community that are interested in doing this, because ultimately you can't do it community by community, and you can't do it with faces alone. There has to be a commitment. We have a governor who said he's the education governor. We have a governor who talks about the importance of higher education, the importance of investing in our future. So we have to help the governor before he leaves to go to Washington. We have to help him understand that if he truly wants to be a supporter of that, then we have to work with him in the legislature to look for alternative ways to fund some of these programs that just aren't being funded in the state of Massachusetts, but they're being funded in California and Mississippi and lots of other places. So.
Yeah, but the sad part of it is it comes down to money. This isn't the first time that Foxboro has been concerned about the top 10% and what we can do for them.
Right.
The hard cold fact is, no matter what city or town you're sitting in, it comes down to dollars and cents and trying to do the best you can for everybody. And unfortunately, until the state gets on board, every city and town is going to run into the same thing. And unfortunately, there's only so much to go around.
Right.
So
But
that's why
But we
have
are
to.
doing something,
That's why
Martha,
we have to
and-
excite them
You know,
and continue.
last year, we
Right.
actually attended to it, even before Wendy, and I think, Wendy, you are to be congratulated for bringing this up and keeping this on. But just as you said, let's go back to our goals. We couldn't address everything we wanted.
Right.
So I love the fact that it's going to be pronged with legislatures, take it from the top. But at the end of the day, we might want to just say, if it's that important, and we've built a business case, and we've said, this is what we want to do, because it lifts not just for those students, but because it ties in with academic achievement and all the other things that we say, well, you know what, we'll figure out a way to fund it, whether or not the state does, if we believe that it's really that important, and we can make that link to academic achievement. I think at the end of the day, if we keep on it, you got a game plan that says, that's exactly what we're doing here. So it won't happen overnight, but we're steadily moving forward in a positive way.
to address Martha's comment, though, let's just take a very 60-second look at some of the charter schools. Do the charter schools all have full athletic programs like the public high schools do? Do the charter schools have the number of students with IEPs and special needs that the public schools have? The answer to both of those is generally no. So here you have School A called the charter school and School B called the public school. The public school has to have has statistically substantially more children of special needs that they have to spend a lot of money on. And they fund, if you look in the Boston Globe, we're one of the handful of communities in this greater area that aren't charging for sports fees, right? So public schools provide something very different than some of the charter schools do. And yet, when you look at the funding here in Foxboro, what the taxpayer pays to fund a student going to Foxboro Public Schools and what they fund for a student going to the Foxboro Charter School, and the fact that some 80% of the kids that go to the Foxboro Charter School don't come from Foxboro, you look at that and you say, there's an opportunity, and Chris has been working on this, I give him a lot of credit, of trying to help the governor and others understand how we're funding. As just a simple number, we're spending $3 million more to send those 150 kids to the Foxboro Charter School than we're spending on that same number of kids that go to the Foxborough Public Schools.
No, 1 million. 1 million.
It's
It's,
about $1 million.
it's,
yeah.
it's two,
It's a million, right?
it's almost $2,000 per student, and there's 150 students.
2,000 a student more than.
Don't forget,
So that's
we
almost
also-
$3 million. So my only point is that So we give them $3 million more, and they don't have the sports programs, they don't have the IEP programs, they don't have the special needs programs.
They don't
They
have
have,
busing.
they have other things, I understand that. But the point is, we have to help the state understand that the funding, the money is there, how we allocate some of that money might have to change. And I give Chris a lot of credit for the changes that he's trying to make, which is why we're trying to tap into the MASC and the Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents, because they're trying to drive some of that change as well. And getting them to understand this helps us get on that bandwagon and really start to hopefully move it forward if we can. So it's not like the state doesn't have the money already, but we may not be allocating it the right way. And as Kate pointed out, we might have to take a very hard look at allocation of the Foxboro School Department budget if we think this is that valuable, and look for ways that we can move money there from other sources. And those are the tough decisions we'll have to make going forward. But that's why it's important as part of the goals and objectives. And again, lots of credit to Chris and his team, because they were working on it last year, they're working on it this year, and I think this year we're going to start to see some traction. But as I've said to Wendy and others, it's going to take a while. We can't expect this to happen overnight. But the great thing is we've got a community, we've got a leadership, we've got a school committee all working to try to help bring this issue to the front of the newspapers, to the front of the legislature, so that we can help people understand if our future economy is based on the success of our students, then we have to rethink how we do education, which gets back to the speaker that Chris talked about at the very beginning of the meeting. It's going to take some radical changes. Sorry.
Okay.
But
Anytime you want, Larry.
I'm done.
You know, it's not our choice that the money is allocated that way, it's from the state down.
And
So
that's-
that's why we need to let.
Changes that need to
Yeah.
That's why we need to get the legislators involved.
They need to walk through everybody's school and look at everything and not look at it altruistically. It doesn't work.
Well, Mrs. Slattery has done such a stellar job on all the policies. I'd like to ask her to lead us through.
Okay, first one,
Pages.
just a quick question for you. Once we get through the second reading, then you'll give us white ones to put in our book?
Yep.
Perfect, okay.
I'll give you a complete set of everything that's been approved after we're done.
Oh, and we'll just insert it. I mean, you're not gonna,
You have, each of you will have a brand-new policy book with all the approved policies.
She's making your life easier.
oh, so I don't have to say it goes here, there, and everywhere?
No.
Oh, you're such
You
a...
just have to turn the old one in and
Okay.
accept the new one.
All right, and you'll
We're
recycle all
trading
those
up.
papers,
I
right?
will.
Okay.
Trading up.
Build another tree.
Trading
All
up.
right. Okay, the first one is Budget Transfer Authority. Does anybody have any input?
Oh, it was beautiful.
Okay. Payment procedures.
Beautiful, I do have a question. Last line, it says the school building administrators will be responsible for observing budget allocations in their respective schools. And I thought that word observing, is it they're monitoring it? Is it that they're responsible for budget allocations? What is
All
the
of
verb?
those. All of those.
Observing is not quite the right one. What's the correct
Managing?
verb? I don't know, is that Chris?
Paul, is
Paul?
that a,
Is it
uh,
Matt?
How
We
about
hold them accountable for
overseeing- how about
managing?
overseeing budget?
Supervising, managing, what, it's.
How about overseeing?
I like overseeing.
Maintaining?
Maintaining,
I think it's too ambiguous.
overseeing and
You
maintaining.
like maintaining? I'd go with the, Paul?
I'd say go with the
Good
numbers
answer,
guy.
Wizard.
Yeah, so, Paul, you would prefer the word maintaining?
Yes, it is.
Okay,
Maintaining.
I'm okay with that, is that okay?
And,
with that?
you know, in the second paragraph, as an operating procedure, I don't know if this is really, the Foxborough School Committee will receive monthly lists of bills for payment from school department funds.
That's the warrant that we have to sign,
Okay.
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yes.
That's
Well,
what's in it.
but there's only 3 of us that do it?
Well,
Is that
'cause
what
it
we're
requires
referring
3
to?
signatures, right?
Is that what we're referring to? Paul?
Yes, and I just think you ought to strike the word monthly.
Okay,
Will
Yeah.
receive lists of
Yeah, because
bills.
it's weekly,
Yeah.
really. I mean,
okay, so strike
whenever
the
there's
monthly. It just
a
didn't,
warrant that has to be signed.
okay.
Do you want, on the last sentence,
Yeah.
it says school building administrators. Would it be better to say school administrators and then strike the word schools at the end and put respective departments?
Okay.
I'm not-
Okay.
Whatever you want. Makes sense to me.
Vandalism. Anybody have an issue with this?
That was very well done.
Opposed to that, it was-
I think it works, yes.
Continue.
Just to pick up on that quickly, as you know, some of it, I know Wendy mentioned, one of the things that we were working on over the summer was making sure they jived with the handbooks.
Okay,
So that's
Right.
something that when you, so you.
That's why some of these were held up.
Yeah.
Right.
Because I think we approved it, but we wanted that review with
To
the
make sure
student
also the
handbook, and that's
well,
what
I
it
didn't
says
want
here.
one
Yes.
to not drive with the other. All right, student conduct on school buses.
It's a beautiful thing, both of them, but my question is and remains, why do we have two different policies that are slightly different, same title, two different sections of the book? It's confusing for me. If it's student conduct on school buses, and this is what appears in the handbook, then we go over to this other one that says student conduct on school buses, which is not as detailed. So I guess, I know we had Jim Hardy explain it to us,
Right.
but to me, this, and our administrators are saying, this is very clear, and it's outstanding piece of policy. This is very vague to me. So are we talking the same two separate policies, or we're just going to, why don't we have
What
this
it's saying
policy
down
in
the-
both
What it's saying
locations?
down the bottom is, the coding of this statement indicates that the identical policy is filed with the student section, in the J student section. So it's
It's meant to be a cross-reference.
It's meant to be a
Okay, so
process.
my
Yeah.
question is, in the
It
student
is.
section, this is not as clear as this. So if this is our well-written policy that's been revised by our administrators, why aren't we having this referenced in both places? Because to me, this is very clear for an administrator reading it, for a parent reading it, for a student reading it, what's expected of them, conduct on a school bus.
I think it's in both places, because isn't one EE and then the other one is JIC, and they both have reference?
Yeah.
Right, but I think what
No.
Kate is saying is,
But we
if
don't
we
see
like
it.
this second one so much, why
Why do
take
we
the
need it?
abbreviated portion
Right.
and just make it the same one in both places?
Right. Or tell me on this one that this is what, this incorporates this one. And there's no reference on that. It's filed under J, student section. Yeah, J, but that doesn't tell me that it's one and the same.
But it's filed under two pages.
No, but they're two different policies.
but they're both-
It says that it's filed, but we now have two different policies, is what I'm
Well,
suggesting
because
to you.
the R, when you say, is the procedure for it.
Yeah, they're-
That's just
So
the way
that's
that
why
Jim had
you
set it up,
do
the
need the
policy
two.
and the procedures.
Yeah,
Right.
so one reinforces, this one reinforces this.
Kate, is your point that we
No, then
don't
we
say
need
the
to, then you know what?
JICCR?
Right, then it needs to specifically say that, because this is what you're going to be using, what's in.
but it does.
It does say, it says JICCR,
And
right?
JICC.
All right.
Right.
Well, I don't think, I'm not sure we included JICCR, at least in the one that I'm.
This is J, look, this is JIC.
EEA.
It seems to me that it would be, isn't it just duplicated in both of those sections?
That's what Jim had said, but you know what? This is one of our old ones that we really liked it, and our administrators liked it, and I'm just questioning.
Yeah.
I know I know the need to cross-reference it, but to me, it's giving the impression of two different policies, and it's really one and the same.
I don't see that.
Can't you just combine them?
Can't you just use the first one as an introduction to the procedure?
I think that's what it is.
That's what it is.
That's
Right,
what it
yeah.
is.
I know, so,
And it's just located in two different places, I thought.
But they both come right after each other, both as EEAEC, EEAECR, and JICC and JICCR. So they both, in both places, come right after each other.
Right,
Yeah.
so what's the,
So what's the problem?
Well, I think it may be that we don't have the corresponding JICCR
Right.
in this right now.
And
Not in this little packet, no.
But it's in the other packet, right?
yeah, but
it's in the,
It's
May
in
I
the-
suggest that we just be very careful with that, because
Yeah.
as parents look at this, or other people look at it, they don't want to get one and say,
Right,
wait a
and not
minute,
the, and
there's a
not the
very
procedure.
specific list, and it says exactly what now the superintendent, we're holding the superintendent accountable, because this is very procedural. I think it's just what we need. I think it's what our administrators wanted. This does not speak to that, so it needs to say that it's cross-referenced, that this is
Right. Well,
the real
we
thing.
can-
The only thing is, there's probably not been more than 2 parents or 3 parents in 3 or 4 years that asked for a copy of the policy manual. Now, so you want to make sure the handbook obviously is
Right.
accurate and detailed and specific, because the parents read that. But I don't know, Wendy, how many parents have called, asked for a copy of the policy manual itself?
One.
One, okay.
No, but parents will, I mean, our principals actually have this available to, and parents use this. And
Yeah,
I
it's just-
didn't know that now it's you, Chris, that's in charge of all of this, so I like the way this is worded. This will get used a lot.
Yeah, but there were certain things that we didn't have in our policy book that should be there, and this was one of them that was referenced from Mass. That's why,
I have no problem with that, Martha.
That's-
To me,
that's why we did
it's-
it.
It's duplicate, then it needs to say that it's, you need to link it,
Yeah,
so
well,
that people don't
but it
misunderstand
is
it.
linked because
can-
of the coding on it.
Yeah, because it says, parentheses, also
Yeah.
JICC, they are
Yeah.
acknowledging that there's another one.
That there is a
Right,
mention.
but we don't have in this packet, in the yellow, a JICCR.
Because it's in the regular book that we have.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
already
It's in
have
that big
it.
book right
We've already
there.
approved this one?
Yeah.
The
Right, that's,
JICCR?
yes, we have, and that's why I'm
Yeah.
saying, when I look back,
Right.
I like this very much, but
Right.
then I looked at this one. So, and we've got both of them on the list, so my question is, are we need to make a reference, so that people don't assume that this is the student conduct school bus policy, and they miss this one, because this is what, to me, this is the
But
policy.
that's right
This is
behind
just a
this one.
reference. That's not where I found that.
Well,
But it
it's
says
supposed to be.
procedures.
I don't- I don't know.
The
It
reference,
says
yeah.
procedures.
Okay.
It's
We don't
in-
need to argue, I'm just bringing up, in fact, none of you have to agree with me, I'm just saying it's redundant, it's confusing,
think it's
and we have an
confusing.
opportunity to straighten that out. If we choose not to, I'm okay with that.
You think some
We can
parents are
have
going to
two-
look at the first page and forget about this and not see the second? Is that what your concern is?
No, because it's also spelled out in the handbook, so I don't.
No, it's the handbook would supersede, but to me, it's unclear. But we can leave it any way you want.
All right,
Okay, we up to staff conduct, Martha?
Yeah. Anybody have any problems with that one? All right, philosophy of staff development? No? Okay, instructional goals?
I think it's beautiful. I like what you did, Debbie and Dr. Martis, but if I could just state one thing. We waited so long for this, and we waited and waited. I think to me, it's a cornerstone of the beginning of this section, and it's not the primary function of a school program. This is ours, and I really think it's important to say, at Foxborough Public Schools, the primary function of our school program, because this is, I think it's important that we take ownership of the instructional goals section. That was,
It
one personalized
It also has a
Right.
legal reference, so it's got to be a little bit broad, too.
no, Jim, we talked about this, Martha. I had those comments in each color, and we waited, because it went on hold, my suggestion was not approved, and this is a place where I think it's time to make it our own.
So you want
Make sure
at
that you give it to
Foxborough
Wendy.
High School,
Make
it's
sure you give it
inserted.
to Wendy so
No,
we
it's
get
at
it in the
Foxborough
second.
Public Schools.
reading.
Yeah, that's right.
We've talked about this July of last year and again in September.
Can you please make sure that Wendy has a copy?
So that we'll have it for the second reading.
Sure.
Anything you want to change, okay? All right, alternative education program?
It's a beautiful thing, but again, we have two sections of alternative education, so just help me to understand, we have IHBH, and then we have IGBH, are they both remaining in the book? Or did one become the other? That's,
We took one.
You got it there, Wendy? That's Wendy.
GBH.
That's just it, Wendy. You know, the other book was just too heavy.
You could give everybody a CD.
so it may just be a coding issue, but before the first reading, I just want to be clear, because we've got IHBH and we have IGBH. So if we're only, I just want to make sure we're only going to have one.
I think this one is a little bit more concise. I think you have to, if you're gonna do a theoretically in the old day, you know what you did? You read every one of these out loud, once.
Yeah, but that's ridiculous.
So that's what they used to do, and it was painful, it took 5 hours.
Is what happened, that this was an old Foxboro policy that
Yes,
was updated?
yes.
And then MASC had their own
See,
version?
this was,
Very
this was
similar.
adopted
Yeah.
32408,
But-
and it was by the Foxborough School Committee then, it was developed. So this, essentially, this has legal references, and this is probably more concise and probably a better alternative.
Jim explained it back in July. We had to have two, and the whole question that I've been saying for all this time, well, why two? And just make sure whichever one, because again, if we could only have one, but he was saying that we needed, that they were somewhat different. One was for special needs, and one was for just any alternative program. And you were going to look into because alternative is used for special education. And so my question is alternative, is this all-inclusive, including special education? And I'm okay with that. In fact, this is, I can say this is what I want. But I'm confused about this IGBH, if it's still going to be on the books, because it doesn't make sense to have two of them.
Why don't you two take a look at this
Yeah.
and give us your
I'll do that.
recommendation at the next one, okay?
Okay. It's not all of
All
alternative
right, let me
programs
just
for
write
special ed, so
IG.
No, but there were two, and Jim said we had to keep them both. And my whole thing,
check.
I have my
All
white
right, well,
notes
then
that say
they'll
change the
put a call
title.
into him and they'll find out if we have to keep them both. Question Jim, question keep them both. Wendy, if you could give him a call.
Yeah.
Okay, summer schools? I like the idea maybe, because sometime, maybe
Yeah.
we'll have a year where we don't have to have any.
A budget, I thought that was a very good call. I like that.
Okay, secondary school classes of 15 or fewer students.
Yeah, I like what we did, but I would like us to, on the first paragraph, I have no problem with the way it's rewritten, but at the end of the last sentence, I think it should read, recommendation for such classes will be made by the superintendent of schools and approved by the Foxborough School Committee. Sorry, Chris, you're in charge, we hold you accountable, but ultimately, I think it's important for accountability and transparency for us to still have that brought to our attention and for us to make that as a conscious decision. That's been my experience, this school committee has done that.
Yeah, but
And
it
I don't
might
want to
not,
advocate
it
that.
might not be our ultimate responsibility.
You're saying whether we really have jurisdiction
Yeah.
over that? to
Yeah,
say
it is,
yes.
it's a budget issue, it's very much a budget issue as to whether or not we will allow that.
Yeah,
So
but
I think
he-
we
but-
need to be
but
made
it's
aware.
also
No, the
related to
administration
educational-
has the ability to move line items, and then ultimately we might approve it or disapprove it. But when it comes to curriculum, and I think it's more an administrative call, not really our call. It might have been in the past, but it might not be now. So if you could just find out where our responsibility really lies, or whether or not this is your call. You know, it might, maybe it never should have been our call. So legally, I think they should find out whether or not
With Chuck
we're
and Mass.
superseding him.
Gotcha.
Okay?
So that's still on hold?
Yeah. Okay, student progress reports to parents and guardians.
I think that's beautiful.
Homework?
I
I
wouldn't
had a
mess with the
question. I'm sorry, back to the student progress reports.
Yep.
Third paragraph down, in addition to the periodic reports, parents will be notified when a student's performance requires special notification, and to me that seems kind of vague. What does that mean exactly?
Well, what it
special
means is,
notification?
if you've got somebody who's probably failed 2 things in a row.
Right.
Why are you gonna wait until the progress reports come out?
But I think it's, I think it, to me, it just kind of leaves it up to really someone's own interpretation about what special notification is. I mean, is there a protocol that if a student does fail so many number of tests? I mean, I don't think there is a protocol. That,
No,
you know,
there isn't, but it leaves it open so that somebody can step in, a guidance counselor, teacher, and call you and say, what's up? You know,
I think it's good, well, I guess it's a broader issue, which is, you know, what if it doesn't happen? Because the parents, I don't know, it just,
I think it
it's
leaves
kind
it
of broad.
open enough so that the teacher or whoever's responsible has the option of notifying a parent, whereas periodic reports will go out, you get progress reports. So this allows someone to step in ahead of time. In other words, why are you calling me? You're going to get the other, where somebody's going to say, well, what are you calling me now for? Progress reports haven't come out yet. So it's a double-edged sword, but at least it leaves it open that, you know, if there's a
But I think
need.
what you said, which is kind of that it's going to be up to the teacher to decide.
Right.
That's,
But
you can never have a
You can't have a
policy.
policy
that
that does
that-
something other than.
Maybe not a
Everything's
policy,
in
maybe it's a
You
different, yeah.
can't.
You
I mean,
can't-
it's a judgment.
It's a
Right.
Yes, a
Right.
judgment call.
And I think it's general enough so
Yeah.
that it would
Okay.
cover, because
Leaves
it's
it
not
open.
just
It opens
failure,
it
it
up
could
to be
be,
able to do it.
it's more
Right.
than, yeah.
Okay.
Homework?
I'm in favor of it.
Yeah, because you don't have to do it.
Starting trouble.
You're not the one that had to sit at the counter with them.
Devin's in favor. In a different language.
In a different and progress reports in a different language, remember?
Okay, graduation requirements?
It's a beautiful thing.
We're in favor of
Can I
that.
put a plug in for Jeff Theodos? When he explained this, and this goes up now, and he's doing a great job educating parents. To me, a picture is worth 1,000 words, and this is fantastic.
So we
Fantastic.
simply pasted it into the policy book. Quite simply.
But it works.
This is what you need to
It does
graduate.
work. It does, it's good to have in the policy.
Controversial.
You know, what's going to happen when they change things?
When they make it 23
We'll
or
have to,
24.
we'll have to change the policy. We would just update the policy.
Okay. Teaching about controversial issues, controversial speaking. Yes, this is controversial.
Wouldn't touch that one.
No. Student involvement in decision-making.
Do we have a new, are we going to have a new
Yes.
student committee representative this year?
Yeah, have we heard anything?
I'll check on that. I haven't heard anything.
You know, way back when, I thought when Ed Reform came in, I remember we used to have one from each grade. Whereas now it's just the
Have to have a
one.
couple more tables.
They're so.
No, and actually we did.
It's probably tougher than getting one.
I know, that's-
No, back then, we did that when I first got.
Well, you know what we could do, Chris, go back to this bus issue here. When it says if there's an issue, they have to go see you, or maybe as punishment, if they want to get back on the bus, they have to attend school committee meetings as a representative.
That is punishment.
I mean,
I would just point out here, I don't care which one you use, but we've got two different ones going, and the one that was in our packet for first reading is not as well done as the one we originally looked at. So, plus it's
Is this under student involvement in decision-making?
student involvement in decision-making. See, it looks like we truncated part of it. The original one that was in our book, it says, it has a little bit of a lead-in. It's from Mask, and it quotes the Mass General Law. And, you know, whichever way you go, one saying every month, the other saying every other month. I think if we write a policy, we should be clear on what the expectations are, and that,
This is the one that knows the handbook,
This is, yeah, that's what,
the JIA.
they went back and they,
my suggestion for you would be, I don't have a problem if this is the student it doesn't make sense until you have the lead-in, so I would go back and just
all right, then
combine.
make the recommendation to her, and we'll look at it with the second reading.
The other question that we need to make as a group, that says, one says here that, what is it, every other, you have to have so many meetings in a school year. The other one, the green copy, says, as required by state law, the committee will meet at least once every other month. And that's the Student Advisory Committee. That's what the Mass General Law says. So which one would we want to go by?
probably Mass General laws.
Yeah.
So we're in agreement, so I can give that
Give
to
that to
Wendy.
Wendy, yeah.
Okay.
All right, student conduct on school buses.
Just a question going back to the last one, which was, we had student buses before, the same one.
Yeah.
But the second part, the procedure, it used to be, if there was an issue, it went to Mr. Jackson for review. Now it goes directly to the superintendent. Is that a good use of the superintendent's time to deal with issues on the bus?
I think you can always, I always have authority to delegate.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it would actually,
Now,
the
how-
process that, we would follow the
Would be-
same process.
yeah.
But does it say that? Or that's just implied?
No, I think it's implied, but
Okay. Well, you're in charge, so I guess you can.
His
apply
contract, remember, always says superintendent or designee, so we've always given you that authority and that out.
Just put it inside. could always add it after a second offense comments.
I just didn't think you'd want to be involved in, you're the appeal, you're the Supreme Court.
I know he'd like to get it over to me, but it's not.
Well, I just thought that was a little bit of a move on Mr. Jackson's part.
Thought we would.
So that's the new likable Paul. He
Right,
wants to be liked,
right.
so take all those issues and put them on someone else's desk. He's the kinder, gentler Paul Jackson.
Plus them all.
Designee is relatively silent in this moment.
It's like, bring it on, I can do it. Prohibition of hazing. I don't have a problem with this. What since I don't have kids in school anymore, this is just a question. Under section 18, do we make this loud and clear? Because this is pretty impressive in that they talk about if someone knows about hazing, and the final sentence is, whoever fails to report such a crime shall be punished by a fine of not more than $1,000. And if that's under Massachusetts general law, I hope that is spelled out loud and clear to the parents and the students so that they know that this is huge. That even if you don't participate, I know it, but to really, make people even more
But
aware.
Maybe highlight it and bold it.
Yeah, it should be bolded or something.
And
in the
even
student
in the
handbook.
handbook.
Yeah,
And it
because
wouldn't be
I mean,
a
it's
bad
not
idea.
something that I would realize that, if I turned my back on it and walked away and didn't report it, I'm as culpable or as liable. And I think kids need to know that.
Well, the student handbook does need to be reviewed with their parents, and the parent has to sign off on that.
I know, but I think
And
it should be
return it to
bolded.
high school.
I
Is it
because
bolded?
I think it should be bolded. To me, that's an impressive section, that section.
But it wouldn't be bad if it were bolded in our policy book either, would
Well,
it?
the other thing is when we bring all of the athletics together as an example, as we do each season in the band and the music, and we talk about drug and alcohol abuse and all of that stuff, we probably also reinforce that hazing is not acceptable here. So it's probably one of those things we cover there as well. And then we require one of the parents to attend, so there's another opportunity. So I don't have a problem if you want to bold it, but there are
I
other
just want,
opportunities.
because that has everything has serious consequences to it. This actually has a dollar amount to it, and I think
I don't have a
people-
problem with it, Martha, but I would defer, I agree with Katie, I would defer to the administrators, because they put it this way this is the handbook, and I love the and the handbook is so clear, you can't miss it. So they may have bolded something else on that page that I would
I
agree
don't
with you
get a
if
student
that's,
handbook, so I
if they,
wouldn't know per se.
we have to look at it, right? We have to look at it, it's on
We
the
have to
bottom
sign that
line,
we have,
and so don't the
read
students.
it over with our.
And it's right
I
there,
just
it's
think
very
because it's
specific.
got a dollar amount to it, I
Yeah.
think it should, I don't ever want somebody to come back and say, well, I didn't know we could be fined $1,000.
I think it used to be italicized, I
You know
don't
what
know.
we ought to
I
do
can't-
sometime? Some year we ought to just secretly put a sentence in the handbook that says, you are entitled to $10 if you call this number, and see how many people call for the
Yeah, I mean,
$10. Then we'll know how carefully they read the student
Oh,
handbook.
you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised.
You'd be
The school
surprised,
counselor-
too.
That might cost us, you'll have to do a separate fundraiser.
I
I'd
would just
like
like to
to
say, I
vote
think
in
this is
that.
very clear. Again, it's the student handbook. There is a preamble that makes sense, just to give people a frame of reference, just like we agreed on the last one, that I'd like to insert that first paragraph, because it highlights the law, and then it talks about, this is our policy from the handbook.
Student welfare,
So I guess it's a yes.
no problem. Student fees, fines, and charges.
Well,
Preamble with the hazing?
Yeah,
yes,
just going to put it in.
give to Wendy.
Yeah.
I will say it again, I'm sorry to be a broken record, but we need to, this is our policy, and it has a legal reference, and I'm thrilled with it, but I think we need
Which
to
one
bring
are you
it,
talking about?
student welfare. We need to, that right?
Oh,
Isn't
I'm
that-
already on to the next one.
Okay, well, I didn't hear you say
I'm
student
like,
welfare.
mine doesn't have anything.
We talk about fire, to me, I will say it again, at the bottom where it says fire drills, it's not just fire drills, it's fire drills, emergency evacuation, I don't know if you want to use the term lockdown, but it's not just, what you do in our disaster plan is not just with the Foxborough Fire Department, it's also very much with the police department, and I just think that our language should reflect that. So, fire drills / emergency evacuations, I don't know if you want to use the word lockdown. It says Foxborough Public Schools.
School safety drills, but in general, but I think this in particular is noted because there is a law now that you have to use the fire department's form. So I
Right.
think that's why this one's specifically detailed, but certainly we can add something general about school safety drills,
And Foxborough public safety in general.
Yeah, to me, I don't think it has to be elaborate. I would just say fire drills and emergency evacuations. And where it says, talks about the Foxborough Public Schools shall cooperate with the Foxborough Fire and Police Departments in conducting fire drills and emergency evacuations. I think that would put us in good stead.
Give it to Wendy. Student fees, fines, and charges. No problems? Student photographs.
Excuse me, it says board, it should say school committee. A school may exact a fee or charge only upon board approval.
Where are you?
Second
Second
paragraph. It should
paragraph on
say
student
school
fees.
committee.
Upon school committee approval?
Yes.
You know what, there was a reference to the above, I didn't think it was a big, okay. All right, student photographs,
Can you put a hold on this one, please?
which one?
Old
Student photographs.
Okay.
And I would like
Is
to
it still
just,
developing?
Larry, what's happening tonight?
My wife says I don't have a sense of humor.
Well, you're doing it.
you're doing good, you're 2 for 2.
I hope she's watching.
I know, that's what I was just gonna say.
I would like to just mention again, because every time we bring this up, and this is the first time we've seen it, strategically, I think we need to decide if the local groups, PTOs, will benefit from pictures, or do we want to keep it district-wide and very much a budget issue, and I don't care how you write it, I'm okay with this, but do you really want the sponsoring group to benefit, or do you want it district-wide? May I suggest that the way you might fund something like innovation or, something that you feel is important would be because it's district-wide. You would get you would leverage a better profit, better money into the system if it's not done by 5 different groups. I brought this up repeatedly. Okay, and I just think strategically, however we're going to do it, if we're going to let it remain small, that's fine, but then we have to suffer the consequences. And I thought that it was done strategic, and that we negotiated one plan. But I guess we do it both ways.
I don't think we do.
Yeah, I think it's
Okay,
on
it's on
hold.
hold.
No, but if you take it over district-wide, you've got an administrative overhead in terms of monitoring and collecting and administering the
Yeah.
whole program also.
You're better off keeping it with each individual school. I think it's
But
more
one
manageable.
of Kate's comments is you shouldn't have 5 vendors, you should have 1 vendor.
Same
One
vendor.
vendor. There's
So-
also a cost to that. Plus, we don't get the best deal.
Right, so
And
you
parents
could,
do
you
not
could
get the
still
best.
work the wording that it's administrated locally, but that the 5 schools have to agree on 1 vendor.
The high school manages athletic pictures, senior pictures, yearbook. They've got a great system for it. If we made that system-wide, and yes, there is a cost to that, but I bet you would get a lot more than the 5 other annual school pictures and the other things.
All right,
It's
he's got
something to look
he's got
into.
it on hold. Non-custodial parents' rights. Anybody have an issue with this?
No, you were able, Chris, your biggest concern was that you were comfortable, and you're comfortable with it.
Yeah, okay. Visitors to the schools? Any problems? Membership in- Yeah, the source was Mass. Membership in collaboratives?
It's a beautiful thing.
Research activities?
You still need that one, huh? That was an oldie but you like that, huh? That's
Every once in a while it comes up.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
Okay, all right, so anybody who has any issues, get them to Wendy, so that we can do a second reading on this. The one thing, Larry, that you brought up about this, and I've been pretty adamant about myself, that this policy book should be reviewed and voted on the sitting school committee before any upcoming elections. So we probably, Wendy, if we've got it done by then,
Okay.
totally done by then, or whatever we have done by then, somebody needs to put it on the agenda for like 1 or 2 meetings prior to elections, so that the sitting school committee passes on it, so that it's set to go, good to go for the next year.
I like that idea, Martha. Also, if we could have a timeline, we did 25 policies, and that's fantastic, but there's
think we
probably
only have
another 20.
12 more.
Well,
We have only 12
I
more.
counted more than that, so if I could have my sheet updated, that would, maybe we'd drop them
Speak
off.
to Miss Wendy.
Okay, if we could have an update, that would be
Okay.
great.
What do you want?
I would
I know.
I
We're
would
gonna
like
give you a
to,
trophy when we're done, Wendy.
You need
I would like to ask for a motion and a second, please, that we will move our first reading to a second reading.
Move.
I don't think you need it. You just gotta-
Well, read, just to,
Steve,
okay, thank you.
you want to vote on it?
Larry
Give them-
and
Katie.
Kate. All approved?
Katie.
Katie,
Aye.
Larry and Katie, okay. Phew, okay. All right, we are now down to others. One of the things that I would like to do, please, is I need to have two people that I would like to assign to the 5-year financial plan. And actually, you'll be working as a team with the municipal officials and committee for a 5-year financial plan. And with the approval of the school committee, I would like
The
to.
selectmen
perhaps-
have appointed one person,
I think we
Paul,
only need one.
to be the representative.
Yeah, I think one probably could be.
Oh, does Paul Jackson?
No,
No.
the selectmen.
Appointed?
Have one person from the,
The chairman,
Selectmen.
the chairman appointed one person from the selectmen.
I don't
Paul
think we need
Mortensen.
two.
He's going to be the representative on this committee. So you'll have the town manager, you'll have the finance director, you'll have a selectman, you'll have the school business administrator, the superintendent. And the idea was probably one
One
from the school
person.
committee, but you could have more, I guess, if you want.
I think such an undertaking, I'll make one. I make a motion, we make Larry do it.
Happy to do it.
Good.
Yep.
I was going to mention, right, okay. Then there is another,
We need to take a vote on that anytime you put somebody on it.
all right, so,
I made a motion.
and
I'll
Katie-
second that.
All right, and a vote?
Abstain.
4, and 1 abstention.
You can vote for yourself.
Yeah.
Well, you can vote.
Yeah.
We also need someone as an ex officio member, Paul, correct me on this, from the school committee for the work that we're going to do with the building, the town building
Yes,
committee.
town,
was
that's
proposed
the
by the
one that I was,
We need a recommendation that's voted on by the selectmen. They haven't voted any of us. Paul will be an ex officio member, I'll be an ex officio member, we'll have an administrator from the high school as an ex officio member.
I think where Larry's done so
And
much
we have-
already.
And we have,
You should.
we have a need for one member of the school committee.
Happy to do it, Martha.
I would also be happy to do it.
and would you have time or be interested in doing that?
I think where Larry's been so involved with it and going in and out of town and meeting with them, personally, I'd like to see him stay on it because I think he's got a lot to offer that. I mean, not that you don't, Kate, but he's so into it, invested in it at this point.
How many can you have?
Well, we need one official, but that doesn't mean like you
Because the
couldn't.
selectmen will appoint one.
Yeah. I make a motion that Larry continue on it as ex officio.
So do
Okay,
we,
I'll
I'm
second that.
confused. If they're going to appoint that, do we
You
need to make?
a recommendation.
We need to make a
Recommendation.
recommendation, so I'll second that. In favor?
Abstain.
4 and 1 abstention. Thank you for wearing a double hat for us, Larry.
That's okay.
That means you have to limit your business trips, you see.
Right, yeah.
Right, all right. I hope it doesn't spoil your sense of humor.
No, I'm practicing.
Okay. Sometime I need to remind you, if you have not already done so, about the mask convention at the end of November on the Cape. If we want to go and sign up for that. And we will need somebody to go on Wednesday afternoon to represent and vote for things we believe in,
Resolutions.
the resolutions.
I
Good.
recommend you, Beverly.
You recommend me.
That's been your long-standing.
Well, I know it's, but if I
Would you still enjoy it, or would you like to have somebody else do it?
No, I would enjoy it.
Second.
I do enjoy but I don't want you to feel
You can't
that
vote now,
I...
Bev. Come on, let's go.
Very diplomatic.
I
All
have
for
a
Bev?
monopoly on this position. I am willing to share.
No, you're doing a
said
marvelous
No,
job.
I think you should continue. It's like the recreation.
Consistency.
Oh, you know how many summer meetings I was able to make?
I didn't want to see you give up your T-shirt.
All in
so-
favor?
Oh, give up my T-shirt.
That's
And
what
I-
I
Favor,
say now.
Beverly.
Bev, will allow you to vote for yourself?
And I will leave extra early this time, because remember last year I missed the first vote because the airplane had landed on the
Oh,
main
that's right,
street.
too.
Right.
And you can't drive around the block on the Cape if an airplane is in the middle of the street. All right. That's all I have right now.
Others?
Other?
Yes, I just want to remind my colleagues that Dr. Martis and I have not forgotten that little policy glitch of naming facilities. We kind of had a draft, but we need to sit down. It's reflected in the June 2nd minutes. I just want to let you know it's not forgotten, and we'll be reporting. When will we be reporting, Dr. Martis? Before October?
Let me, at the next meeting,
Oh, no, no,
remind
no.
when
Katie and
we'll
I-
be reporting, because I'm not.
Larry's assigned Katie and me to a meeting with him, so we may have stage you.
Well, that's okay, because
Well,
I
that's-
forget
those-
things, but
those are goals
we-
district
I just wanted you to know, Dr. Martis and I have not forgotten it.
I didn't think that you would, don't.
Well, I would. I think Wendy
I
knows
was
I
going to
forget.
bring it up on the others.
Well, good, good. The other thing I just want to mention is that the Partnership for Drug-Free Foxborough, they did work with Chief to support the outing, the Night Out Against Crime, but most importantly, the group is very limited with a number of people, but they've been able to execute a plan and to do probably 2 or 3 things really well, and this committee's been apprised of that. What they're doing now, and just to give you a heads up, is that the group has actually asked for a panel of experts, and we'd like to, and that's, the group has actually asked, and we're in the process, Dr. Martis will be setting up a meeting with himself, Chief, Debbie, I would very much want to have you there, where it's curriculum, Craig Najarian, and that meeting hasn't been set. It'll be sometime in September. It will be on the website of the Drug-Free Foxborough, so look for it. And basically, use the experts. It's not a law enforcement issue or an education issue, but those are the 2 areas that we're always asked to kind of put up or shut up. So we're using the experts and to hopefully get their input, then how we can move to get some community engagement. And then from that, the 1 or 2 things, given the resources and the few people that we are involved, what could this group do and do well? And so I'll keep you posted. It's a planning session. It'll be sometime, I would imagine, September, and from that, we'll come back and report what are the 1 or 2 things that we feel, that this group feels that they could actually, continue to accomplish.
I would love to go to that field.
I think that
Any other?
I have nothing, Madam Chair.
Other? Other? No, I would entertain a
I'll
motion
make
to
it.
go.
To go into
Katie,
executive session.
second.
Martha,
Katie.
Katie,
For the purpose of discussion.
for the
non-union
purpose,
negotiations.
yes, we will now enter into an executive session for the purpose of discussion of non-union negotiations, and we will not be returning to open session afterwards. Roll call by aye vote. Aye.
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 5 ayes. Okay, the meeting is adjourned. 9:26.